council just got out of session, and so I think my colleagues are on their way. But I would like to go ahead and begin. I have to send my apologies. Mr. Parks and I will have to step out for about 15 minutes during a time we have to go downstairs to a budget item, but we will be back, and my other colleagues will be here as well, and we will try to make that as short as possible. Today, members of the public, I'm so glad to see all of you, and for those of you that took your bikes down here, thank you. I think this is a great time in the city because I think the commitment to having a bike-friendly environment has never been stronger, and looking at multimodal opportunities here in Los Angeles. But we have to do a lot more and a long way to go, and a lot of the progress we've made is because of the advocates like you that are in this room. I don't believe that it's just about painting putting paint on the ground. We need to really look at a paradigm shift in how people commute in the city of Los Angeles. And drivers need to be conscientious and share the road and work very closely with the bicycle community in the laws that we create, and for those to be obeyed as well. We also need to make sure that there's pedestrians, because I've seen a couple of them who walk with their phones and are not paying attention and across the street, and how that impacts our bicyclists and our cars. And I think that we have a lot of items today that we hope to move forward to begin to recognize the commitment on bicycles. So I just want to thank you all for being here, and believe we've had more discussions about bicyclists this year since I've served as transportation chair than in the previous 2 years, and I think we're seeing a great change. And with that, Madam CLA, I think we'll go to our first items.
Item number 1 is a DOT report relative to the bicycle plan update.
And if you could maybe just bring me all the cards, that would be great. Thank you. Because we are going to take items 1 through 4 together.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'll read them all then. Item number 2 is a DOT report relative to the bicycle sharing program request for information. Item 3 is a Rosendahl Garcetti Gruel motion relative...
Before you guys sit down, I think we are going to take the public comment first. Yes, okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
3 is a Rosendahl Garcetti Gruel motion relative to the Cyclist Bill of Rights. And item number 4 is a Labange Garcetti motion relative to a request for a report on the city's bikeway infrastructure and proposals to increase biking opportunities as a viable transportation option.
So we are going to hear items 1 and 4 together. So I'd like to call up Damian Newton, Ron Millam, and Howard Hackett. Our first 4, and then it'll be Joe Linton, Dorothy Lay, and Arisha Smolarski.
Just to make sure I have this, it's 1 and 4, not 1
1
through
and 4. Sorry, I think I said initially 1 through 4, but I meant 1 and 4.
Great, just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
My comments will be very brief. One thing that's I think that might want to be included in a this particular bike master plan. It's not. Oh, should I start? I'm sorry.
Yes, please,
okay.
Go ahead.
One thing that should be.
She'll go and do that.
Just started talking.
Yes, she did. No, that's okay. And she's going to use the timer over there. Apologize.
It's okay. I'm not going to be close to 2 minutes. But anyway, Hi, my name is Damian Newton. One thing that I think should go into, or could go into this bike master plan that's not usual for other bike master plans, and this is specifically going back to the Bologna Creek gate issue we had before, is I think there should be some procedure that's sort of outlined if there is some sort of bike amenity that's put down that's for some reason deemed dangerous, that there's a specific format and thing that people have to go through to take it up. It's just not something that's done arbitrarily. And I know the Bologna Creek issue was more than not arbitrary. It was very deliberative, everything that went on with it. But there was a whole thing, how do we close a gate if we have to? It was a long debate. And it's something that this might be a place to do that. On the way biking here, going down Sunset towards the city, right before Echo Park, I was in a bike lane. And the words bike lane were actually painted over in one place in black. And I didn't know if that was something that was done by the city, something that was done accidentally during a street painting, something that was vandalism. But it occurred to me that if it had been taken up for some specific reason, there's nothing ever written that would have let me know that had happened, other than if I had happened to overhear it somewhere. So talking to people down here, I don't think that is what happened. I don't think it was taken up intentionally. I just think you can see the words bike lane, but it's all black on top of it. You can't actually, it's not white, it's not super visible. So that was just something occurred to me on the way down, and I wanted to throw it out there.
Great. Thank you, Damien. Ron?
Hi, my name is Ron Milam, and I was the founding executive director of the Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition. And I'm really excited that you're having this hearing today, and I really want to thank you for the leadership you've taken on the issue. I'm in general support of item 1, and I just wanted to talk, a little bigger picture, more global. I've been doing this for a long time, and when we were doing bike advocacy 10 years ago, there wasn't much of a constituency. And now you look around, there's an active, engaged, energetic constituency out there that wants better, safer, more enjoyable places to ride a bicycle. So, we're in a global crisis. That means there's incredible opportunity for more sustainable paths, and bicycling plays a key part of that. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to be here, and want to just encourage you to listen with your hearts to what the folks have to say here, and not just listen, but take action, concrete action, because there's so much more work to be done in Los Angeles, and we really have the potential to be this bicycle-friendly mecca, and I look forward to helping make that happen and working with everybody else. And I just want to thank everybody here for coming out today. It's as Alex Baum, remember you said, when is it the bicyclists are going to storm City Hall and just be like the animal protesters? Well, look around. We've got like 100 or 200 people here. It's happening. So the time for change is now, and really appreciate your leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Howard? Sorry, did I put that one up already? I'm not Howard. Sorry. I think and maybe if gentlemen, you don't mind giving up your seats, we got some other additional ones that came up as well. So Howard.
Dorothy Arisha.
Right, okay.
I'll start
Great.
with the bicycle master plan.
Sure.
It's a great idea. I think it was started, according to this, what I got, was in 2006. And here we are in end of 2008. And by 2010, we might have some lines on a plan, but no lines in the street. I would hope that there's some critical areas that really need attention now, that we could take those out and maybe work on them. As an example, I live on the west side near the marina, and there's Playa Vista, a new development, 20,000 people. There's LMU, a college nearby with students living on campus, and then there's Otis College living on campus, and they're all locked into their structures. They cannot ride the streets in that area. It'd be wonderful if we could somehow get that out, the Playa Vista part of the plan out, and work on it now instead of waiting for this big master plan, which will be 2010 or whenever. Thank you.
Thank you very
Let's
much.
talk about the RAM report now, or
I'm sorry?
is
On
this
item
just one?
4, did you have your card on item? We're just going on item 1 and 4.
Is that the RAND plan?
No, that's
No.
number 2.
That's a different one. We'll call you up on that item.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Arisha Smolarski, and I'm the outreach coordinator at the Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition. I want to speak in regards to motion number 4, item number 4. We are seeing major changes throughout the nation in regards to transportation and the emphasis on building bicycle infrastructure throughout the city. For example, in New York, just recently in the past few years, there have been major changes. We've been seeing public spaces converted for the use for people, not for just cars. They're reorganizing the streets for cyclists, for public transportation. There are bike lanes, sharrows all over the streets. This has happened within the last 3 years because of a change in leadership and leadership from the from the New York Department of Transportation. And there's no reason why Los Angeles cannot follow that lead as well and become a bikeable city. So I would like to see those sort of initiations coming from Transportation Committee as well as from the Department of Transportation to take action and to change the way we think. And I think that can happen right now. There's no reason why we need to stall anymore. So.
Great, thank you. And I think on this agenda today, we have several items that we are moving forward and running on parallel tracks, as having the bicycle plan, but at the same time taking action on some items which I think are really important. Dorothy and Joe, and while we do that, I'll also call up Alex Thompson and George Wolfberg.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Also from the Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition. I'm going to speak on item number 1 and 4. One, just that the bicycle master plan, the 1996 one, emphasizing that it was not fully implemented. Actually, a very small percentage was. And with this new bicycle master plan, there's a really amazing opportunity to make some real change. And I really hope that Los Angeles does implement the new bicycle master plan to the fullest. Regarding item number 4, I just wanted to touch upon the fact that if Los Angeles really does want to change its culture and try to embrace bicycling, then we're going to have to make some difficult choices. That is regarding parking, removing some parking for bicycle and pedestrian facilities, and taking away lanes from cars and actually making those lanes available for non-motorized transportation. And this is obviously going to happen. It's going to be very difficult, but I think a lot of people here and a lot more people are beginning to support that, the business community, things like that. So we need to engage with diverse constituents to make those difficult changes, and I think it's going to transform Los Angeles in a way that in the end, everyone's going to be really excited and happy, and Los Angeles will become a destination, be known for more than just pollution and traffic. And obviously, Los Angeles is known for a lot of positive things too, but I hope that Los Angeles is also known for bicycling and open space.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Joe?
Thank you, Councilmember Gould. Thank you for your leadership on transportation. It's a tough issue, and I'm sure there's a lot of constituents that feel like their mode is the only mode, and I'm grateful to you for emphasizing flexibility. I think the city will be more resilient and more viable as people have multiple choices, whether it's transit, driving, bicycling, walking, or car sharing or taxi. So I think we need to work on a more balanced system that gives people a lot of options. I think that if the city's looking at, on item number 4 today, looking at bicycling as a viable transportation option, I think we need to look at setting modal goals in our transportation planning. Bicycling in recent census is under 2% of commute trips. If we're going to help to boost that modal share, which I think we need to do for transportation, for resource consumption, global warming, based on a lot of issues. I think we need to measure our modal split of transportation. We need to really track it, and we need to set goals. So I would urge Transportation Committee, if you want to make bicycling as well as other modes viable, let's charge the DOT with reporting what is our percentage bicycling, is it improving, why isn't it? And I think that what other cities have done is like Boulder, Colorado, and Vancouver, Canada, have set modal goal targets of increased bicycling, increased transit, increased pedestrian, and then gotten reports on those and set their DOT funding based on those priorities. So I would urge you to look as the discussions start to happen toward next year's budget, to look at what your modal goal is and how you're funding that mode. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. We'll just come back over here, George, and start this way. George? Oh, go ahead. Alex?
Thanks to all the Midnight Riders for coming out. I want to talk about the bicycle master plan and whether it's going to be effective. The 1996 and 2000 plans were actually very good documents. Pretty much everything that I could ask for is in the 1996 or 2002 bicycle master plan. But unfortunately, as other speakers have noted, very little of that plan was implemented. Now, in looking at another item on this agenda regarding bicycle sharing, LEDOT responded to that request for investigation that the city still lacks a continuous network of bikeways to accommodate bicycle use for the bike sharing program. Well, a continuous network of bikeways was written into the 1996 and 2002 bicycle master plans. So why don't we have one? Why is there that lack? This, to me, we're in this catch-22 where it's sort of like, well, we can't do things for bicyclists because we haven't done them. So what I'd like to see is what I'd like to know is what is the commitment of our city's leadership to making sure that the new plan is implemented? And I think one way to make sure of that is to better engage the community. I've been critical here and in writing of the outreach that was done for the bicycle master plan update initially. Very poor outreach. I learned of the meetings third hand, and I'd like to see the committee move to supplement the budget for outreach for the bicycle master plan update and add more community meetings so that we can better engage cyclists. Thanks.
Thank you. George?
Thank you. Thank you very much for putting the bicycle issues on the front burner. I greatly appreciate it. My time goes back to the first plan in the 70s, so a lot of improvements have happened over the time. And I actually came down here to make a general comment, but in going through the documents, I noticed that there's a technical advisory committee that's created under item number 1, and I think there's a major omission, and that is the department that probably owns the most corridors that could possibly be turned into bike paths. That's Water and Power, so I'd recommend that they be added to that.
They be added to that? Okay. Thank you, George. Great. Kent? You? Kent Strumble? No?
My name is Joe Borfo.
Okay.
I thought you called my name.
Part on this item, but Kent, go ahead, Joe, and then we'll go to Kent. Go ahead.
Oh,
You wanna
go ahead?
comment? Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name's Joe Borfo, and I live in Eagle Rock, and I grew up there. I ride my bicycle regularly to work, and when I can, I also drive because you have to in LA, but as much as I can, I ride my bicycle, and I basically am here to say that I am endorsing the Cyclist Bill of Rights, and I am requesting that it be put into effect as written, because it's a very effective article. I have experience riding my bicycle regularly to work. I've been pulled over by police for no reason and harassed for just riding my bicycle safely. I've been nearly shoved off the road by metro buses. I've been told to ride on the sidewalk because that's where bicycles are supposed to be. It appears to be that there's not enough knowledge by regular citizens that bicycles can be on the road and have the right to be on the road. And that really needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kent, nice to see you.
Hi, Kent Strumple. I'm on the city's Bicycle Advisory Committee and also on the board of the Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition. I also want to thank you all for putting all these great cycling issues on your agenda and addressing them. I want to speak to item number 4, Councilman Labange's motion. I wasn't real clear what this was about, Mr. Labange, but I think the intent is very good, and I would like to encourage that we use this report that you're calling for to really look very hard at what is going to be needed to make bicycling a much more substantial part of our transportation mix. I think the city is doing a lot of good work, but for the most part, it's mainly taken advantage of the low-hanging fruit till now. I think to really take it to the next level, we're going to have to really look at the tough choices and look at the examples of other cities, what they're doing, and perhaps this report can really begin to dig into the stuff that we're going to need to do to take cycling to a new level in this city.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you, Kent.
I do have something I want to give Councilman Rosendahl. Is it all right?
Yes, we'll let you.
He is my bike guy for the 11th
know.
District and does a fabulous job.
Thank you. So, and thank you all for being here. If we could have the department come up to the table, please.
Chair Gruhl and members of the Transportation Committee, we just wanted to make a few preliminary comments as we get into this theme meeting regarding alternative modes of transportation, in particular bikeways and transit. We wanted to convey that the department is excited about the program that it has underway with regard to the bicycle program over the next couple of years. As we will discuss further regarding the bicycle plan, it will be the most extensive plan undertaken in over 30 years, and it will significantly expand the bicycle network and provide connectivity and continuity by using a variety of collector streets to make more of a viable network throughout the city. And we are committed to providing that plan to the City Council by June of this year. And that is our timetable to which we are committed. With regard to staffing, we are in transition to providing new and expanded staff in the Bikeways group. We've just recently received approval for a bicycle coordinator, and we will be expeditiously moving to bring that person on board. We have brought in 2 other people, which we feel will energize the staff. And while we do have 2 vacancies due to a promotion and someone leaving the city, we have requested an exemption from the managed hiring process and hope to fill those positions as well. With regard to the bicycle sharing program, we expect to issue an RFI in the next couple months, and look forward to that coming back showing that bicycle sharing is viable in Southern California. We feel that this is an ideal area for bicycle sharing due to the pleasant weather that we have, and we hope that the information we receive will show a private sector interest in that. And finally, we wanted to not lose sight of the fact that we have a significant program underway. During the next 2 years, we plan on implementing 18 miles of bike path and 20 miles of bike lanes, and that's a significant increase into the inventory that we have currently, and that will be over the next 2 years. And beyond that, we have other improvements that we plan on implementing as well. So I just wanted to convey the department's commitment to the bicycle program. Thank you.
Curious on the mileage you just said. Are you going to create maps that will show us that so every bicyclist can look in on that?
We will be updating them.
We have an existing print map that we're actually in the process of updating right now. We also have an electronic map. As the new print map is done, it'll be posted on the website as well, and we'll be able to update the electronic map
That will show
regularly.
the next 2 years of where we're going with it.
The map from the policy document will show, from the new bicycle plan, will show the proposed and updated. So those will show in there. And we actually, on some of the stuff that we're very close to implementing, will show as a dotted line on the map, as you will, facilities that we'll have upgraded in the next couple years.
Great,
Yeah.
thanks.
I have a couple of questions. The contract. When was the contract awarded?
We've been at work almost a year now.
Okay, so the contract was awarded a year ago, and can you describe the community input that you're going to? The kind of timeline is how you're going to ensure that everyone's input is part of this plan.
Sure. Thus far, we've done, and we are continuing to plan 4 major meetings throughout the city. We've done 4 meetings in various locations throughout the city, the Valley, the Harbor, Central City, and the West Side, and those are meant as kind of points of contact to get everybody there. We've also had virtual meeting information available on the website. Everything that was presented in the bicycle plan meeting is available on the website, and there's an opportunity for comment. We've also had 1,000 comments back in addition to those public meetings. Beyond that, Jordan and I have attended a number of neighborhood councils. I've done presentations at ACT Conference, USC, a number of other opportunities to talk about the bicycle master plan, and we get as much information out there as we're able to at this point and on request.
And so the plan, so to speak, is after you have compiled all that information, you'll go out to the community again.
Right. That's actually where we're headed next. At this point, the consultant's been doing a number of things. I would say we're at least halfway through the work, probably more towards 3/4 of the way through the work. They've been doing the 3 main segments of the new plan. They have been taking the old bicycle plan and evaluating it for feasibility to determine if the bike lanes and bike paths that are on that are still feasible and making recommendations to us. They have been taking all the comments from the public input from the website as well as the public meetings and have been compiling that into a policy document. It's a draft document at this point that has been issued to the city family to respond to. It covers a number of things. Actually, it breaks us down into 8 overall plan goals, including implementation and administration, education and encouragement, enforcement, road and bikeway engineering, bike parking, bike transit integration, maintenance, and overall evaluation. We also have a draft recommendation at this point to look at a 10% of all trips and a 5% of all home-to-work trips mode split by the year 2020. So they are continuing to work. We also have a very early draft of a bicycle map of the new network. It hasn't been released within the department yet to take a look at. I actually just got it. So we'll be looking at that, and we'll be going back to the public, we think, in January with the policy document, the new draft map, for additional comment from the public.
Okay. I don't know if any of you want to add anything or just here for questions. Colleagues, do you have any questions on these?
It's a question. Statistics are extremely important on everything. How are our statistics? How many bikes are in the city? How many bike accidents are in the city? How many bike accidents are on sidewalks? How many are on streets? How many are in bike lanes? Do you have any of that statistics? Do we have a breakdown? How many times the fire department called to an incident involving a bike? How many times has the police been involved?
We don't have a lot of good data at this point. Most of the data is collected through SWITRS, which is a statewide database that essentially is based on the CHP Form 555. This city, as well as all the other cities statewide, use the CHP 555 form to report any collisions. There has been an effort to review and rework that form because it doesn't actually provide really good opportunity to report bike collisions.
So with that being said, I think come back with us with a very good analysis of statistical information necessary to prove the point that we have to do a better job to incorporate cycling into our transportation plan.
What I was going to note is that we had, a few years ago, we did do a study of all the collisions in the city. We have found that our numbers are actually very low. If you look at the county, overall county statistics, the city, based on per capita numbers, are very small. That said, we have a long way to go, and you're right, data's a big gap in the bicycle community, state and nationwide, not just in the city, but we will work on that.
And then also, what has been successful? Is there if you put up on the map right there on the wall, of the city, what is successful? Name 3 things that are successful for bikes right now.
Well, we've been doing a number of things, and part of the thing with the old plan, what I told folks when we adopted the old plan in '96 and the update in 2002, is that most of the work in that plan would really be for 15 and 20 years, that we really be moving forward on it. But, for example, Los Angeles River has been a major success. We're continuing to put that in. The Orange Line bike path, which is Chandler, which we were supposed to essentially do as a bike path by itself, we were able to integrate with Metro's bus rapid transit project. We're currently working with the Expo Light Rail Authority to get a bicycle lane / path combo that'll go from USC all the way through Santa Monica. So those are big bike path facilities. We're certainly working on a number of lanes. We have 40-some projects in development and design, bike paths and bike lanes. And the new plan will really look at this gap closure measure and the collector network to get us to a new level, away from paths, arterials, and to take us down to more local cycling. That's the plan.
Thank you. Michael, got anything you want to add?
Nope, she covered it.
Good. All right. Anybody else?
I think one of the biggest thing is to ensure, as people have made, is that some of the items that have been in the previous plans we have not implemented, and so that we have to do is going forward a lot more action than talk, and to see where we can push to actually implement some of those recommendations. And some of them, again, that we have here are on our agenda today, but there's a lot that are not, and so we want to see that. Mr. Parks had a comment.
I was just wondering, at what time does the master plan and updates basically fold into our community plans that are being updated by planning?
Do you want to address it, Jordan?
Thank you.
Yeah, I could speak a little bit to that. Jordan Turner, Department of City Planning. Actually, they're sort of going hand in hand. As part of the outreach, actually, I've myself attended a few of the public workshops we've had, specifically San Pedro and West Adams. And as you guys, I'm sure, well aware of, we're having 12, I think 13 now, community plans that are being updated, and we'll be systematically updating all of our community plans in the next 5-10 years or so. In terms of how they're coordinated, our plan is somewhat standalone in one aspect where we're looking at the entire city, but as each plan gets updated, we're encouraging whatever's not included in our particular plan, each community to ask for facilities within each plan update. Because within the update process, you're able to redesignate streets through that process, and that may include bike facilities on individual streets that we may not have perhaps captured in our bike map. Ours is sort of a global citywide map, and there may be a lot of local destinations that ours perhaps hasn't captured, but we're encouraging each community to identify those locations within their community through the community update process.
One second. Well, the next question comes. I'm going downstairs for that budget situation with the mayor, but I'm coming back up for the Bill of Rights to talk it more thoroughly. How many rode their bike here today? Okay, very good. Good feeling from the community. So apologize. I'll be back.
Thank you very much.
What I'm trying to understand, does the master plan get adopted in the community plan, or is it the reverse? I mean, how does that, or they play off each other? I'm just, because it's a lot of work being done, we just would not like to lose it, and particularly when it goes across boundaries and a few other things.
We're doing a number of things. The bicycle master plan is a part of the transportation element. We're actually trying to expand on some items that we'd like to be included in the transportation element. To date, I've met with a couple of folks that are doing updates on the community plan and talked about integration of streets that we believe are going to show up in this new collector network. But
Let
we'd like
me ask you one thing so I'm clear. The transportation element is a standalone also, right?
within the general plan, yes.
Within the general plan?
Yes.
Okay, so there would be a transportation element within every general plan?
Within the city's general plan, there's a transportation element. The bicycle plan is a part of that. And then within the community plans, we'll pull information from the bicycle plan into each of the community plans.
All right, so I wasn't, but the city's general plan will have the transportation element, which includes all the work you're doing?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
If I may add, so one point, Helen Bibas with planning. We are also making a point of integrating very proactively bicycle planning into every transportation planning, either ordinance or plan that we do in the city planning department. For example, we are doing TOD planning as well, and we make sure that we integrate a lot of bicycle amenities within that project. We are also updating the TDM ordinance that will include a much larger component for bicycle and bicycle amenities.
Is the ultimate goal of the master plan for the bikes is to have a connecting throughout the city where you can travel throughout with,
one of the things
which is,
yes,
and I would hope somewhat similar so that people aren't having to understand different issues as they go into different communities.
One of the things we've asked the consultant for is a 1-mile grid. So if you were anywhere, essentially, you could get to some sort of bike treatment or bike-friendly street or bike lane or bike path within 1 mile of where you are. So if you were in the middle of that area, it would be a half-mile anywhere. So we've never been able to do anything like that. I think the collector network will be the thing that really pushes us over the top and really pushes our mode split higher for bicycles. So this will be the first time we really try to do that.
If I may add one other thing, the master plan, or the bike plan, I should say, is sort of twofold. There's obviously the maps and the lines on the maps, but also it's a resource. So, like you're saying, for each community, we want them sort of to have to look the same. So no matter what community of the city you're in, the same design criteria and elements will be included. So it's not just where my community where these lines are at. It's also a resource we want people to utilize as well.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to receive and file, but before we do, there's 88 cities in the county, 28 in Orange County. Without naming Santa Monica, what is the best city other than Los Angeles? Are they all prejudiced there for biking in the county of Los Angeles or Orange?
The two cities that have been doing the most work besides us have been Pasadena and Santa Monica.
Pasadena, Santa Monica. All right, but I didn't mention Santa Monica, so I already was crediting them. What do you guys say? Same?
And yeah, the same.
Same? Same.
Well, in Orange County, Irvine's pretty nice, but they built their infrastructure around bikeways,
right?
Which is a little bit different. We're trying to
Catch up.
retrofit, yeah.
Catch up on that. Thank you all very much on that. Thank you. We're going to call number 5 next. We're going to ask the Assistant Chief of Police, former Police Officer 1, Police Officer 3, Sergeant, Sergeant 2, Lieutenant of the Mounted Unit, Captain, Commander, Deputy.
Item number 5 is a reassigned motion relative to the current status of the city's bicycle licensing program.
What we're going to do here is we're going to hear from the city staff real quick, and then we're going to go for public comment. If you give a brief report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Earl Paysinger, Assistant Chief Director of Operations of the Los Angeles Police Department, and indeed I will be brief. Responding to a motion from some time ago, I believe it was several months ago, relative to the research that the department is currently undertaking as it relates to our bicycle program. I will say this, that in 2009, we are efforting to move very aggressively towards an enhancement of our youth and community-based programs under the umbrella of the process or the name called Youth First. I'm very excited about that idea in terms of recalibrating and recoding, creating a new architecture for the manner in which we deal with our youth and the community at large. As a dimension of that, one of the things that we're looking at in a very comprehensive way is the manner in which we both license bikes and also provide education for same. Admittedly, there are some areas in the city that are still issuing bike licenses, where in other areas that process is dormant. Part of our research, a significant dimension of the research that we're conducting, is to determine the best way not only to license the bike, but also provide education and make this a full-service opportunity, not only for the youth in our city, but obviously for other members of the community as well. Being a cyclist myself, I'm fully aware of many of the issues that are being discussed here today. I live in the city of Long Beach, and that city, too, is very bike-friendly. And I'm very, very sensitive to many of the issues that are being discussed and the manner in which I believe that all of us can do a lot better in terms of
bike. So the agenda for 2009 is the Los Angeles Police Department is going to focus on this effort to try to get a licensing program that works?
We are.
Okay, good. Michelle Mowry?
We've been looking at this for some time. We have one of two ways to go. One is to disband or completely revise the current program. I know one of the issues that has been important to council is making sure children can be identified if they're on their bicycles. To revive the current program, we need licenses to be sold, but we also need a very detailed and accessible database. So all of the license data that is developed on the form is actually put into a database that can be accessed by the cop on the street or somebody calling dispatch. It's going to be, to get us to that point, is going to be an extensive undertaking and an expensive undertaking. While DOT doesn't have a role per the Muni Code or per the CPC, we've been researching this for some time and working on it, as you know. There are a number of ways to do childhood identification. We've been talking internally about maybe using our youth education program. Safe Moves is our contractor to do a school youth education program, and developing a helmet sticker that could be inserted in the child's sticker or on their bicycle. We've also talked about revising the city's current Muni Code to delegate licensing to LAUSD if what we're really looking at is identification of children. So most bicycles have serial numbers and can be identified by serial numbers. I live in Long Beach as well. Long Beach licenses their bicycles by fire. LAF or Long Beach Fire Department actually first Saturday, I think it's the first or third Saturday of the month. You can go between certain hours and it's open at all stations. So there are alternatives.
How much is the license in Long Beach?
It's the same. It's set by state and it's $3.
$3. Michael,
I think we'd like to work with LAPD and bring our previous research and their desires and needs and work together and see if we can come up with a program.
To figure it out. All right, I'm going to ask you to vacate your seats real quick. I may call you back in a moment, but I want to have the public comment. As chair of the committee now, since the chair is there, I have 1 minute rule with more than 5 cards, so I'm asking everybody to speak to 1 minute. And if you need any extra time, I want you to take it. Rhoda Bloch, is that correct? Okay. Damian Newton, Russell Buchanan, and Dorothy Wee, if that's correct. Introduce yourself and then...
Hello.
Yes.
My name's Rode Block. I'm basically a victim of the bicycle licensing program, and I just wanted to voice a couple of issues that I had with it and then some possible solutions. Basically, I was cited for not having a bike license as kind of it felt like it was a last resort for this police officer who originally pulled me over saying that I was riding illegally, and the fact is that I wasn't riding illegally, and he realized it after we pulled out the CVC code. But then he kind of pulled out the bike license thing, and it was the one thing that I wasn't legal on. So the issue became, I'm totally open to getting a bike license, no problem. The ticket was $160, and it wasn't fixable. It wasn't a fix-it ticket. I have to actually show up to court. When I went to go get the actual license, the only station that I could find that offered them was Central, which is by 5th and Los Angeles, or wherever that station is. When I got there, the police officers were actually reluctant to even want to find the bike license box and give me a license.
How long ago did this happen?
This was in September, October. The process happened actually over October. So what I'm saying is one solution that I would like to see is that the bike license become a fix-it ticket. Then I can just go to the CHP or whatever. I mean, if you can't repeal this law, then let's make it a fix-it ticket where I can just... I mean, I hate to waste the resources of the LAPD and the court system over something as frivolous as a bike license that's $3. So if we could move to make this a fix-it ticket at the very least, and at the most, let's get rid of the program.
Thank you. Whoever I called next, introduce yourself.
My name's Damian Newton. A lot of you know me from Streets Blog, and we've done a lot of writing on bike licenses. And hearing the testimony that was given earlier, it's almost like we're talking about something completely different than what we heard described by the first set of speakers from the city officials. What's happening is notification was given that as of August 1st, the city was going to start enforcing its bike licensing law. The law, which is a state law, was designed, it's usually voluntary in most cities so that cities know when, when they have a stolen bike, will be able to trace it back to the person. That's the idea behind it. And when I say that there was notification given, there was a flyer put on the one computer at the Central District headquarters. So if you happened to walk into the Central District headquarters and saw that computer, then you knew that it was being enforced. When I heard that people were getting tickets, and I read about his incident online, I went to my local police station, and they didn't know what I was talking about. So I went to the next closest police station. They didn't know what I was talking about. Finally, I just started calling around and found out that there's 2 police stations that give out bike licensing tickets in LA. One is the Central District, one is USC. Under law, bike licenses are supposed to be given out when bikes are sold. I talked to 4 different bike shops. None of them knew what I was talking about. Now I know that there's one in East LA that does, Joseph Bray Ali's, no surprise. So when I went to get my bike license, the one person who could be there the 2 days that they give them out every week was at lunch, so I had to wait 20 minutes for her to come back, and then I could get my bike license. It's just, people are getting tickets for something that's very, very difficult to get, that people don't know they're supposed to get. And incidentally, you can get a bike license for $2 through the mail from Santa Monica. It's a state license, so it would work in LA too. So if $3 is too much, you can go to Santa Monica, and if you don't have access to those 2 stations that give them out at special hours, you can just get it off Santa Monica.
Question, you ride a bike?
Yeah.
Well, how much your bike cost?
My bike is a couple $100.
So what would you think is a fair price for a license?
Oh, the license price doesn't bother me. It's just that...
What if the buddies, we have a horse tax, and
Sure.
all the money you pay for horse tax
I pay.
goes for horse improvements,
Yeah.
equine tax. So
I don't have a problem with the $2-3. It's just that there's a lot of people that don't know what's going on. We just heard someone
needs
say
to be organized. I
Right.
think
We
that's
just
the
heard someone
cheaper
say it's a $3 state law, but you can get it for $2 from Santa Monica. That's just I'm using that more as an example that people are getting tickets for something and no one knows what's going on.
The information is not clear. That's what we want to straighten out.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
My name's Russ Buchan. I'm glad to see the City Council inquiring as to how the LAPD is handling licensing. I'd like to see the council go farther and either repeal the law or convert it into something that is A, voluntary, and B, useful, unlike the law now, which is archaic, hasn't been implemented in years. I've bought several bicycles new in Los Angeles, and I've never been offered a license, even though they're supposed to do that. As the officer admitted, the program's not even being implemented at police stations in parts of the city. Now, I was also ticketed on the same night that Mr. Block was, under the same circumstances, and I can assure you that it was being used that evening to intimidate people from observing a situation where some LAPD officers had a cyclist in handcuffs. We were asserting our right to peacefully observe what was going on and just make sure that the suspect was being treated properly. And the officer started looking for things to ticket us for. He was about to give me a ticket for not having a headlight until I showed him that I not only had a headlight, but it was on and blinking at the time that he was speaking to me. So I was
What
glad.
part of the city did this happen?
This was downtown, just a few blocks from here.
And Chief Paysinger, Detective Ito, Chief Paysinger, would you suggest if anyone had a complaint like that, they should see the watch commander if they felt they were not served appropriately by the police officers? Okay, so, and I don't know if you exercise that. And I know sometimes
not yet.
everything is intimidating. City Hall is intimidating. Police stations are intimidating. Sometimes going out dancing is intimidating. So it's all that. So this is important information. This is a step, and I think that that's what Ms. Gruhl and this committee wants to do, is hear from everybody. We're in a room together. We're not going to, the most remarkable thing I saw this year is when my wife and I went to Berlin, and how much the people who drove in Berlin respected bicycles. Absolutely stopped for me by the
good to hear.
bicycle. And that is not happening in Los Angeles.
No,
that has to be a cultural change.
Could I have,
This is
could I have a few
important.
more seconds, please, just
Sure.
to speak on the issue of the licensing? I was glad to hear Ms. Mowry point out that there are other ways to keep track of kids rather than using mandatory law where compliance is required and there are penalties for not complying. And I also heard the officer just a few minutes ago speaking about outreach, and I'm glad to hear that the LAPD is reaching out to youth, but again, I think there are better ways to do it than with a law that requires compliance and has penalties for not complying. And let me also just point out quickly, because I know I've gone over my time, that this licensing program is not an effective deterrent to theft. It just consists of a sticker that's placed on the down tube of a bicycle and can be very easily peeled off by a determined thief. So there are much better ways to deter theft. There are much better ways to keep track of kids who may be lost or missing. And I think this law is archaic. It's a relic, and it needs to be taken out back and shot, put out of its misery.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to do that. We don't want to shoot anybody. We don't want to shoot anybody. We're a nonviolent bunch up here. Yes.
Okay. I think the main consensus in
You're
the-
Dorothy Wee?
Dorothy Lai.
Okay, thank you.
From Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition. The position of Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition on the bicycle license issue is that we would like to see the law revoked, or, if needed, changed in a way that they actually serve the cycling community, and not to provide LAPD with an excuse to ticket cyclists. You talk about respect for cyclist motorists. I think LAPD needs to, as an overall agency, respect cyclists. I think we hear, mixed signals from LAPD, but overall there is a lack of respect of cyclists on the road, and also lack of knowledge on cycling laws. And I think LAPD, if could be educated on cycling law as well as other people. Another thing is that one of the reasons why LACBC thinks the bicycle license law needs to be revoked is that it actually is inconvenient right now, and it makes it harder for new cyclists to get a bike and ride. If it's hard enough to get on a bike in LA, to have even more impediments is just not trying to promote cycling.
Thank you very much. The next set of speakers, Mrs. Box, Mr. Box, Mr. Thompson, Lindsay Nelson.
Hi, my name is Nancy Box. Thank you for having me. I would like to see the bike license revoked. I'm absolutely against it. I've ridden my bike all over the world as a 10-year-old, as a 5-year-old, and as an adult, and nowhere did I ever require a bike license. This bike license has nothing to do with education. People go in, pay $3, and get a license, and they're not educated. They're just getting a piece of paper that they can stick on their bicycles. Is the police department going to start giving educational classes to cyclists that you get the license if you finished a 2-3 hour class? Or is it just, where is the education element? There is over 100 languages spoken in Garcetti's district alone. Is there going to be outreach done to the Hispanics, to the Armenians, to the Chinese, all the people who are riding their bikes all over the city and who now get an excuse to be pulled over and collect money from them because they don't have a license? Please revoke this license. Thank you.
Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
against
Box. Mr. Box, I called your name. If you want to speak, you're passing. Okay, good, thank you. Okay, Mr. Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, I agree with NC and PC and several of those other folks that this law ought to be stricken from the books, just gotten rid of. Some people are talking about raising the fee to make it useful for something. I don't agree with that. I pay 8.75% on any purchase in LA. I have a $2,000 bike. That's $175 of sales tax. I think that ought to be enough of a fee for LAPD to come up with another way to recover stolen bikes. And the reality is that LAPD is under federal consent decree in part because of consistent civil rights violations. This is a law that was meant to recover stolen bikes, and now it's being used to criminalize cyclists. Is that really a productive way to promote cycling? Is this a necessary thing? I think this is just a law that was meant to serve another purpose and never really quite made it. Now it's not implemented, and it's useless, and it's become a nuisance. I'd say get rid of it.
Thank you. Nelson.
Hi. I don't own a car. A bike is my only transportation. And when I heard of my fellow cyclists receiving tickets for this, and they told us that you could only go down on 2 days during the week during certain hours to get these, and I'm putting myself at risk for a ticket by riding my bike around every day when it's a Wednesday, and I only found out today that I can't even go get this license until tomorrow. And then so I go down there and no one's there to give me a license. And they don't have any explanation, and they just say, well, what can we do? And it's unfair that it's mandatory. People don't have the time to go down there. I mean, I'm a law student. I don't have the time to go down there and screw around at the police station and I can't afford a $150 ticket because they can't, give me a ticket, give me a license. And it targets the wrong people, and it doesn't, they said, it doesn't help recover bikes. It's just ridiculous, and it should not be mandatory.
Thank you very much. I think everything should be available online for anyone nowadays with the advent of the new century, but I know we're still behind.
Hi, my name is Arisha from LA County Bicycle Coalition.
Hi. How do you pronounce your last name?
Smolarski.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So LACBC would like to see this law revoked, as currently stated, also for the reason that people are getting ticketed for a license that is not even valid. According to the California Vehicle Code, it states that no resident shall operate or use a bicycle, whereas in the LA Municipal Code, it says no person. There's a discrepancy within the language which actually makes this law unenforceable. It makes it illegal. It is actually not an enforceable law at this moment. Also, according to the LA Municipal Code, it says that the cost of the ticket is only $10, not $160. I was amazed today to hear that someone got a ticket for $160. It's actually written in the LA Municipal Code that it should only be $10. So this law should not be happening right now. The other reason why I think we should have this law be revoked is that a bicycle license is actually not a reliable tracking device, even for thefts. It's actually just a small sticker that's placed on a very obvious place on the bike frame, which can easily be peeled off by a bicycle thief. So if it's going to be used for those reasons, it should be, thought of a different way of actually just putting it on the bike, because it's not at this point.
Low
it's not,
jack.
Yeah, no, but it's not even a good reliable tracking device.
I got it. Thank you very much. That closes public comment on that. Chief Paysinger, I wanted to ask you a question, if I could. Is there any opportunity the Los Angeles Police Department, which we see there's a confusion operationally, it hasn't been something done, that we could suspend the enforcement of this section of the code until such time that we figure out what we want to do? I happen to believe in licensing in the sense of if it works. But it doesn't work if you only have 2 police stations. It doesn't work if it has limited hours. It doesn't work if you go to a desk at a number of police stations and you get a different answer. It doesn't work if it's not online. So what this committee would like to recommend is that we study this, for report back in 60 days. But the question to the police department today is, with this being studied, and there's some confusion, we don't like to see anyone being singled out for any reason, that we could suspend the enforcement. There's any directive the chief could put out until such time that the council gives clear authorization, because I do not believe that if not every station Now that every retailer is doing this, there is some confusion, and everybody spoke had a different tale of how they were frustrated.
Thank you, Mr. President. The fact is the community members who spoke here today, all of whom raised significant issues, and the police department is very sensitive to everything that's been said here today. The fact of the matter is, again, I would say that we are looking very carefully in a very comprehensive way at all of these issues, and I believe that within a very short period of time we will be able to speak intelligently and with integrity as to whether or not it'll be our recommendation to repeal or at least hold the law in abeyance, and come up with some reasonable, meaningful ways in which to move forward with this process. Again, I would hesitate to give you an answer now just based upon the fact that we have not finished our research, but that research is forthcoming.
But is there any way you could send a message out to your area commanders that at such time we're studying this, that they withhold from enforcing that? If you run a red light, you got to get a ticket. If you run down the wrong way of a street, whatever the code is, because it is a vehicle, a bicycle is a vehicle, I think that has to be enforced. But on this issue here, because it's not clear, I'm just asking if there's anything within your toolbox to say, you know what, right now we're going to study this. We're going to have the department study it. They're going to make a recommendation. Let's not issue this one ticket for a system that really isn't available right now.
It would be, Mr. President, it would be my recommendation to the committee that it would allow the police department to continue and complete its research. Okay. And at that time, we would make a recommendation as to whether or not we would.
Now, I also believe in free speech, and I gave everybody free speech. I want to get the chief free speech because he fights for it every day. Chief, study this, come back in 60 days, but let them know there's confusion out there. More people are riding bikes, and there needs to be some clarification how we do this. Ms. Bowery, 60 days, we want some action. And let's see in the first half of the new year, because I know it's tough, but we got to look at this, because this is something I was frustrated with. When did I work on this, Michelle? 10 years ago. Well, I wasn't even elected, and I got elected without solving that problem, so I don't know how that happened. All right, thank you very much. This is going to be continued for 60 days and a report back, but look at the sensitivities. You heard a lot of variety of public speakers there. Mr. Parks, just a question.
Yeah, I'd like to have a DOT.
Michelle. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, what would it take to get the system in place that was initially, basically by law, that it would be licensed at the point of sale? What would it take the city to have that system in place?
There are two departments that have functions within the city. One's LAPD, the other is Office of Finance, formerly the city clerk. The Office of Finance would have to do an audit. There has to be some teeth behind forcing the bicycle retailers to sell the licenses. At one time, we had pretty good compliances, and most of the shops sold, but at that time, there were smaller mom-and-pop bicycle shops. Now, Costco, Kmart, Target, everybody sells bicycles, so we need to get compliance from them. Sears was the only major retailer that actually did comply with the program in the past. So we need to get the Office of Finance to actively push this and move it along the retailers through the business license program. And we need to do an audit so it has some sort of teeth. Again, they're not here, but my understanding is they don't have the resources to follow up on this.
But do they have the ability on business license to distinguish what retailers sell bicycles?
Yes, they do. They have a list. We've seen the list in the database, and in the business license, they have a number of conditions that are applied to each vendor, and they actually will list bicycle licensing on there, but it's one of, maybe 30 things in 8-point type.
Okay, so if they have the list, so they identify, so we know what businesses sell
Yes.
the license.
Yes.
So the key then would be, as part of the licensing of that business, that they're required to fulfill that obligation.
Yes, and they currently are. They just aren't.
I mean, we're not having the retailers are not complying.
Yes.
Okay. The other thing is, what do we do? In my understanding, we have at times bicycles that do not have serial numbers or other kinds of numbering. How do we deal with those?
The only program that I know that actually deals with this in an effective manner is the program on the campus of UC Davis. And in the case of a a very low-cost bicycle that might be sold at Target per se, they actually do have the mechanism to stamp a number on it. They assign their own serial number per se, and they put that on the license paperwork. So we could establish maybe one office at LAPD that deals with bicycles that don't have a standard serial number. They have model numbers per se on the very cheap bikes, but they don't have serial numbers. Most of the high-end bicycles over $400 or $500 do come with serial numbers.
Would that be beyond the skills of the retailer to put the number on it?
It might be difficult. The way they do it at UC Davis is they actually have, a little set of metal chisel sort of things that they stamp into the bike, and they keep their own numbers. If the bicycle retailer were to do it, I don't know how they would know unless each shop has their number. It's shop A through Z gets an A, and then that have to be designed and incorporated somewhere within the city, and then they keep a record of their own numbers. So it'd be difficult. It's just the size and scope of a city like Los Angeles.
Tom, let me ask, would you ask for a report back?
Yes.
Could we ask, we have Office of Finance as part of that to see how we might encourage the enforcement of the law as it was intended? Because having watched this for the last 40 years, it never quite works when people have to do this as an auxiliary function. And if it's at the point of sale, you at least have limited all of those options that when you buy it, you get a license, and all those things are done as part of the sale.
Very good. So we'll add that to that. You got that, Madam Clerk?
Yeah, and if I could
Mr.
add-
Rosendahl?
Yeah, look, the problem is it's a big deal, and it's dysfunctional the way it's presently set up to get a license, okay? And the bicyclists are really abused in the process. The police are confused in the process. Everybody is out to lunch on it. And so when we go through this process again, and our city attorneys needs to be part of it, and the LAPD needs to be part of it, we need to come back and have a further discussion before we even implement something like this. I think actually we should put the whole bicycle license on hold at the moment. Is it going to go on hold?
No, we're going to get a study back in 60 days.
But I mean, the existing license, is it going to be enforced, that process still?
That's an LAPD question.
Right now, it's something that's allowed.
Yeah, well, I'm saying some people enforce it, others don't. People don't know how to get a license. People, it's confusing. I think we should actually just put a moratorium on it and come back with a better process.
Let me just ask the question.
I'll make a motion on that right now that we suspend it and put it on hold.
Let me ask the question. Madam City Attorney, can we do that? What Mr. Rosendahl is asking?
He can certainly introduce a motion into the city council.
Not separate from this action that we have before us. We're studying this.
He could do it separately. He could do it as part of this matter. But the matter would, first of all, a motion would have to be brought. Secondly, it would have to be adopted by the full city council in order for it to be legally effective.
Right. In essence, though, knowing the calendar, we are going through this period of time. This could be back by the beginning of January, which may have a recommendation, which may ultimately lead to what Mr. Rosendahl suggests.
I'm just hoping we could put a moratorium on them right now.
And I already asked that.
Yeah, let me ask something.
Yeah.
Have we had in the past where we've held laws in abeyance when a court decision comes out, such as we dealt with homelessness and we said we don't make certain arrests until something has been decided?
It is a discretionary decision on the part of the city. The city council could certainly make such a request to the chief of police, as an example.
Let's do that.
That's what. Well, wait a second, Bill. What we were talking about there. That's what I was asking for. Then, Earl Paysinger, Assistant Chief, could you recommend by next Tuesday in council to any one of us on this committee of a solution that would kind of put in advance the enforcement of the issue that Mr. Rosendahl eloquently spoke about, that I eloquently spoke about for him.
And I missed it because I was downstairs dealing with the family crisis.
So we got it. So here's the thing. We got what you're saying. There is confusion. No. So what we could possibly do, Madam City Attorney, is give us direction on Tuesday if there needs to be an immediate request or it could be done administratively. There is reasons why this is done, either administratively or by council action with some public on it. We will let you know. We feel your frustration and we feel the department's confusion, even the police chief, Assistant Chief Paysinger's confusion. At this time, I'm going to turn the chair back to, I did make a ruling as chair, and I just would recommend you go 1 minute because everybody wants to speak if they want to speak. on issues. Number 5 then would be received and filed. On the issue that you just spoke of, we do it Tuesday in council, we make emergency.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is have, I'm not going to be here Tuesday, but I want to make sure that the police don't enforce this one, which is so confusing and dysfunctional, that we should put it on hold, and whatever legal mechanism we need to do to say that, I'd like the people to go through the holidays and not get harassed on this issue at this point.
So, can you let us know, Chief Paceter, before Tuesday, as to whether or not you can administratively do that, or whether it will require us to have a
Council
motion?
action.
Council action.
Good. And Madam Chair, I had another event. I have to leave the meeting right now. I support cycling, as I said, which is real important. And it is a transition that Los Angeles is going through. I did want to invite everyone on a Monday night, the 24th, to Griffith Park for the Light Festival if you want to ride in the Light Festival as well. And Joe, I want to see some encouragement, because it takes those who are passionate like yourself and others to help lead the way for cycling if you'd like to come.
Well,
Thank you.
We did talk about making sure that they could cycle in there as well to the light show.
Madam Chair, just for clarification's sake, is this motion continued for 60 days for a report back from departments, or is it received and filed?
You need a report back from the departments. You want action.
I think we'll get a report back in 60 days. Okay. I think that was it. I'm sorry, what was that? 60 days. Ask LAPD to report back in 60 days. Okay. Thank you. So next item, we'll go to item number 2.
Item number 2 is a DOT report relative to the bicycle sharing program request for information.
So Damien, Alex, and Alexis, and I think you indicated, Mr. LeBon said he indicated a minute each. Is that it?
I'll be brief again. I read the report online about the request for information. I didn't see some of the things that I had discussed when I was out here earlier, and I know that LADOT doesn't take direction from me, at least not yet. But I just want to. I appreciate that. But I just wanted to reiterate some of them that bike sharing. I agree with a lot of the comments that I've been reading online, and I think that we heard the other time that the city probably isn't ready for a full-blown bike sharing, such as what you saw in Denver and such as what Councilman LeBon saw when he was in Europe. But I think there are some opportunities for microsystems, perhaps closer to some of the beach areas, maybe in Hollywood, maybe in the downtown, or failing at micro areas, maybe special event planning, which is closer to what you saw in Denver when they brought in those 1,000 bikes for a week, then shipped them all up to wherever the Republicans were. And that's it.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, can I ask you in your 4 seconds, is this, you're thinking that is not included in the RFI?
I don't think I saw this, and it might be that they're just waiting, that maybe it might be, I don't know how RFIs work, and maybe that someone will, it's open and that's understood, but I just didn't see specific language saying we're looking for possible special event bike sharing ideas or, smaller, not citywide bike sharing. And again, it might just be that I don't know how RFIs work.
Okay, we'll make sure to ask that question when the department comes up. Alex?
I looked at the RFI on Damien's blog, and one of the concerns that LADOT raised, which I mentioned before, about having a bike sharing program is this is the exact quote: "The city still lacks a continuous network of bikeways." I'm adding that to accommodate bicycle use for the bike sharing program. So the presumption here seems to be that novice bike riders need bike lanes to ride safely. I agree. LA is a dangerous place. But we were just informed that they'll be adding 38 miles over the next 2 years. I find that an important skill in understanding these sorts of things for LA is division. There's 469.1 square miles in LA. So 38 miles divided by 469.1 square miles divided by 2 years is 213 feet per year. Does that seem like a sufficient number of bikeways to support a bike sharing program in this city? I don't think so. So I think this helps to reflect on how some of the numbers we're hearing sound big, but LA's bigger. And we need to hear bigger numbers.
Thank you. Alexis?
Hi. I am a former employee of Zipcar and sort of saw that crumble as it did. I'm not quite sure what's going on now. But I would recommend, like Damien, that there be a chance for bike sharing to happen in a sort of micro environment, and that you could implement it in a downtown area and around transit centers like Red Line and Gold Line stations and have it be successful.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll have the staff come up to the table.
My name's Michael Wenner. I'm with the Department of Transportation. We have drafted a request for information to determine the feasibility of public-private partnership to develop bicycle sharing program within the city of Los Angeles. We'd like to have council approve the RFI in concept and authorize the department to circulate the RFI and receive responses on it. And basically, it's because it's a public-private partnership, it's a wide-open field, and we're asking people to tell us what kind of environment, how they're going to work the program that works for them, and see if it works for the city also, and see if there's some ground that we can come to where it works for both of us, so that we can present a program like this within the city of Los Angeles.
Is the recommendations that Damien and Alexis had and those about having it be not only just citywide but special event, is that capable under the RFI that's going out, that you would say, in addition to, do we need to amend anything to ensure that we could get responses from that RFI that allows us for special event kinds of...
Yeah, I believe it's capable under this. We might want to specifically call it out as something that we're interested in to ensure that people consider that.
Yes, I think we... See, Damien, they are listening to you wherever you went. Okay, see?
I was trying to. It was really hard to hear them from behind,
That's all right.
from the back of the room.
But I think that is important because, I am not sure, we've had lots of discussions about the ability you can immediately do everything at one time, and I think the bicycle community has been great about wanting us to focus on some things that are really important and to see what's manageable. In this instance, we'd like to look at all the options and not limit ourselves. Because if someone came back and said, well, it would take this much to do the whole city, everyone's going to go, no, we're not going to do that, versus we'd like to see if there may be some plan. And particularly when you see like a month or so ago when we had all the kinds of events that were happening in the downtown area, and that would have been a time where you'd say there's something at the Staples Arena, there's something at the Coliseum, there's something, in different places in Dodger Stadium, that time to be able to say there might be some instances we could do that. So we will amend, and we'll ask that by the time you come to City Council, that it be clear in the RFI language that allows for those kinds of opportunities as well.
Yeah, I just want to make one comment about it is the cart before the horse. We don't have enough bike paths really to make this effective, to be honest about it. And what it does is motivate us to move forward. If we can find particular pieces of land that we can do the pilot in or make it happen, let's do it, because it's a no-brainer to do this. But the real no-brainer is we got to get the bike lanes going in a more dramatic way than ever before, so that there's safety on the bicycle traveling through the city. I personally, when I introduced the Bicyclist Bill of Rights, came out of it from the experience of Mandeville Canyon, and came out of it from the experience that people just don't understand that bicyclists have rights. They just don't get it. They're an obstruction, they're in the way, people, why aren't you going faster? All kinds of attitudes from the culture of the car that has to be dispelled. But bike sharing and all of this as a concept is a great concept. So we got to stay focused on it, but obviously we need to get more bike paths going. And then what would be great if you can model it and find a spot or two where we can actually implement it. That would give hope that we can actually create this strategy.
Okay, so the action on this item, as we indicated, would the RFI to go forward and amend that by the time it comes to council. Thank you. Thank you. And just since there's 3 of us now here, reiterate that on items 1 and 4, we're receive and file. Okay. There are only 2 members in that. Okay. The next item we're going to go to is item number 6.
Item number 6 is a DOT report in response to a Garcetti-Reyes motion relative to a shared lane pavement markings pilot program.
Okay. And we're going to go to public comment first on this item as well. I'm going to call by 4 names at a time. Alan Alcesio, Road Block Jr., whoever that is. Someone had a sense of humor. Howard Hackett and Joe Borfo. since we'll just start with you, Joe.
Okay, hi. Joe Borfo. I ride my bike regularly. I had the opportunity to go to Europe recently. I went to France and Amsterdam and Berlin, like Mr. Labange was able to do. And I was impressed with how well that worked. And one of the reasons why I thought that it did was something simple. On the pavement was stencils of a bicycle with arrows saying, hey, bicycles are allowed to be here. And I think it's a simple movement to let the motorists know that this is something that's, the road belongs to the cyclists as well. And so instead of, big education programs and, expensive things, this is a simple way to let the motorists know that cyclists are supposed to be on the road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Alan Alessio, and I'd like to continue with Cheryl's subject. I myself have been a bicyclist pretty much all my life, and I've seen some of the things that work. I used to live in Sacramento and started out where I didn't have any rights at all or any kind of markings at all. I go back there and visit some of my friends and so forth, and I've seen what they've done, and the Cheryl's plan does work. I think it's the most bang for your buck as far as implementing it. You don't really have to change, too much on the streets. All you got to do is stencil those things and make it aware for all the drivers and so forth. Let them know that it's the drivers that need to be educated. It's not the riders the riders know their rights. So, what we need to do is educate the drivers, and that's one way of doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Roadblock. I am a commuter cyclist. One of the things that I feel from riding on the streets of Los Angeles, and I've rode pretty much every corner of the city, is that I think drivers are not educated, but I also believe that, also just on a side note, I do believe that a lot of cyclists are not educated. And I think one thing that can lead to all of our collective education is just as much signage as possible that it tells people and reiterates, whatever it is. It could be bike lanes, bike paths, sharrows, bike route signs, share the road signs. All of it is good, and it should all be on the streets, continually educating drivers and potential cyclists that it's okay to be on the streets and that we should be on the streets. And that's it. Thank you.
And Howard, before you speak, I'd like to call up Dorothy Lay, Lois Arkin, and Arisha Smolarski. Who said it's passed? Okay, thanks, Dorothy. So then we'll also call up Patrick Miller. Go ahead, Howard.
Okay, I'm Howard Hackett. And about 2 years ago, the LA Bike Coalition, I think, and Michelle Maurer, we did a study about Cheryl's on a number of streets in the city. And it's been 2 years, and this is the first time we're going to have a Cheryl. And Cheryls are not rocket science, folks. Let's get some paint. Give me the paint, and I'll do some Cheryl myself. Also, I think that this committee is backwards. We should have the staff come up here and make their report, and then have us be able to talk about what they've said to us. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Patrick Miller. I've been yelled at by a driver while I was riding in a Class 3 bike route to get on the sidewalk. So that clearly says that there's a lack of communication there with a little sign that says bike route, and for drivers and cyclists to understand. I didn't even realize I was on a bike route because every lane is a bike lane in the city of Los Angeles, at least every right lane. So we have a right to be on every street, but even on a bike route, I've been yelled at to get on the sidewalk. I think that Cheryl's is just one small part of a wide range of needs in terms of education about cycling in this city. And just briefly, I'd like to say that cycling education needs to be incorporated into driver's ed classes, to DMV posters, print ads, billboards, awareness training for city employees, and pretty much integrated into like our entire transportation system. If you do that, then the measly projections of the MTA saying that we should have 5% of our trips by 2025 be by bicycle, we could double that, because the number one reason people do not ride in Los Angeles is because they are afraid. They're afraid for their lives.
Before you leave, I think your last comments were fabulous. I think you should get with our city and give them again with them and work it out. It's a no-brainer what you just said. Thank you.
And imagine the cost of billboards, flyers, and DMV posters compared to 1 mile of bike path. Making a bike path is millions of dollars, and for $20,000, we could have flyers and posters in every single DMV office in the entire county of Los Angeles.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to ask Maria to draft a resolution that would ask, if it's a state policy to what it gets included, ask them to do that and adopt a motion within the city council to do that. Will you second that for me? Yep. Thank you. Yep. We'll go. And Mark Peterson, we can. I just turned in a card after we had. Go ahead.
My name is Arisha from the Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition, and I do wish that LA DOT had actually done the report first, because they would be able to.
I apologize. Sometimes people like to do it first, and other we kind of go back and forth. So
Okay.
it was no plan.
That's fine. But anyway, to follow up, there is apparently a citywide pilot project that's going to be undertaken by LA DOT, and I would like for this actually to become a motion that when they are choosing the streets, we would like LACBC to make sure that we are part of the planning process when they're choosing the streets, because we would hate to see LADOT choose streets that are actually not meeting the needs of cyclists, that are not safe for cyclists, that are not suiting the needs for cyclists. And we, as we represent the community of cyclists, can hear from cyclists, such as Patrick, such as a lot of the people here, and tell DOT, tell you guys, but mainly work with DOT to make sure that those signs, when they are being painted, when this pilot project goes out, that they are actually on streets that are good corridors for cyclists.
Thank you.
But I would like to make sure that that actually goes into on writing in the planning process with
know
DOT.
this, that some council members, I know Ms. Gould does it and I do it for sure, is we have a bicycle person, like Ken Strumpel is my guy. I mean, he tells me what to do on this, and they should be part of that committee, and that would be a natural flow of that interaction.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Lois.
Hi, I'm Lois Arkin from the Cooperative Resources and Services Project located in the Los Angeles Eco Village. And I want to just say, in terms of fiscal impact and follow up on what Arisha just said, is possibly once you have all that list of streets and you've worked it out with everyone, that you relay that information to the neighborhood councils and with the instructions about how to paint their own sharrows. And that would save some money. Also, I want to just represent old people here a little bit. I'm an old lady in my 70s, and there's a few of us
never call you
around.
old.
Right behind you.
So we need this Sharrow's business is great as some additional infrastructure, but it is only just the smallest spit in the bucket in terms of what we need. And I have heard it said again and again that, yes, we need a lot, but we have to go slow, 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 because there's all this and there's all that, and we want to be safe, and we want to make sure the city is free of liability. But I want to tell you, other cities are doing things really quickly. I sent a video to Jennifer a few days ago. Hope that she passed it along to you, Wendy, to see what they have done very quickly in New York City. And there's no reason New York City can do it. Why not us?
Thank you. Thanks, Lois. Mark?
Hi, Mark Peterson, Bike Riders Collective. As well as being a cyclist, I'm also a professional graphic designer. And I'd like to bring up something about Sharrows that I think is very effective, which is that they indicate that you have the full use of a lane if you need it. A problem that I see with bike lanes is that many cyclists, even ones that seem fairly experienced, ride in the middle of the bike lanes. This is very dangerous, of course, because you can be doored. If someone opens the door in the path, you're right in the way of the door. And having been doored myself, I know it's a very dangerous thing. So this is why I tend to favor Sharrows over bike lanes, because I think they help direct, in an intuitive way, a cyclist into riding in the correct position so that you're out of danger. That's my comment.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. If we could have the department come up. And again, sorry, sometimes we have the department go first and public comment, and it just depends, and I apologize if you wanted it the other way around.
DOT Bikeways has been working on developing a study to determine how most effectively to implement Sharrows within the city of Los Angeles. So our recommendations on this are to receive and file, and we'll report back in 120 days. We're working with Council District 13 and a possible funder of a consultant to develop a methodology for determining how most effectively to use Sharrows within the city of Los Angeles. What we want to be able to do is pick out those locations where Sharrows are the most effective and concentrate our efforts there. There are about 7,000 miles of streets in the city of Los Angeles, and we can't afford to put Sharrows on all of them.
But you've identified 5 to 10 potential locations.
We've identified a number of locations. What we're looking to do once we determine the methodology is find locations that fit the kinds of streets that the methodology needs to test. And so we have a lot of streets that we've looked at and that we could put Sharrows on. Once the methodology is decided, we will look for those kinds of streets that the methodology is looking to test.
And how? 120 days seems like a long time for. There's a methodology that should exist where they do it in New York or some of the other places,
they don't.
Other agencies, and where they have the methodology to select different sites.
There are a couple things that make this difficult to implement this. First of all, the Sharrow has not been adopted for use on the federal level. They chose not to adopt it. We're hoping they're going to adopt it in 2010, which will change the guidelines and allow them to install them in ways that you can't install them per the guidelines within the state of California. The original study was done based on San Francisco roadways. Our roadways are quite different. For instance, the 2 hard and fast rules for installation of a Sharrow is that they have to be 11 foot from the curb lane, so on-street parking, and 11 foot. And the other piece is they have to be put in where there is on-street parking. At our intersections...
And that is a state rule?
That's a state standard. And the state of California is the only one that has adopted the Sharrow for standard use, which protects us from some liability. We, the City of Los Angeles, and our geometric design from our traffic engineers install turn pockets, right and left turn pockets, which when the travel lanes go straight, you add the turn pocket, it jogs everybody over at the intersection. There's no parking. So we don't have a way to install the Sharrows and be protected by the guidelines and standards that exist and direct cyclists, novice cyclists, and motorists that bicyclists will be making that move as well. So we're trying to figure out a way to make this work for all of us, a way to protect cyclists and get them on the ground in the best way possible.
Have you sat down with the coalition, the Bicycle Coalition, to talk about some of these issues?
What we have been doing is the meeting with CD13 in exploring, actually we have talked to them and we have talked to the consultant team about the ongoing issues. CD13 is looking at involving the Bicycle Coalition as a part of the funding process. So yes, they have heard this.
Okay. Because I think there's some differing opinions from the testimony we received and what you're telling us, and I'd really like to see everyone in the room so that we're all on the same page as far as having the same basis of information and sharing in this time period in which you're going forward, because I think we talked about having a pilot program in CD13 at the time when we talked about this a couple months ago, and to really see this moving. And I think you sense the frustration from not only us, but clearly the public about it always seems it's going to be the next time, and we've studied and studied and studied, and we want to go forward. And so I sense from the coalition that there hasn't been a sit-down discussion about methodology, laws, things like that, with everyone in the same room hearing the same thing, which I think would be important to do. And so my recommendation would actually be to have a meeting as you're going forward and come back. Have that 120 days in which you want to report back on things, but be able to come back in 30 to 60 days and tell us who you've met with, how all the discussions and the feedback that you've heard from the people here today.
If I could add to that, and I agree with Ms. Gruhl that we should have reports quicker and don't wait 120 days. I'd like to throw a CD11 into the pilot mode. My folks know my district, and they know it better than I'll ever know it, and I'm around it all the time. And there's even some suggestions I'd like to just throw out. That you look at Barrington from Wilshire to Venice, you look at Rose from Lincoln to the Pacific, and Abbott Kinney from Maine to Washington. Also, I'd like you to look at Venice Boulevard itself. But in my district, which is everything west of the 405, we got a contained piece of property that we can understand rather simply. And I would like to suggest that Ken Strompel from my coalition there and other members of the Bike Coalition that engage in CD11, that they be part of this meeting. And I would like to get a report back on that concept, if we can do it, by mid-January, by January 15th. And if that can be done in the next 6 weeks, and you could report back that we found this street and that street, and you looked, especially, Michelle, at the state law and its implications on it. And I know Mr. Garcetti would feel the same about his district, but I can't speak for him. We're willing to rock and roll. I'll grab my neighborhood councils as well. That was a great suggestion. Paula Daniels, who's one of our commissioners, is an avid bike person too. We could throw a group together that could work with us, and if I could get a sense of that, I would love a January 15th update and possibly something. Or is that unrealistic?
It may be. The meeting that we had with the coalition and Council District 13, and the consultant who's being tagged to do this is Alta. Alta's been asked to produce a bid and put that back, so we're essentially waiting for Alta to provide something back to us. So we're kind of in hold, waiting for the consultant to determine whether or not what their costs are and for the project to be funded through this private source.
Okay, but I know in my district, for instance, I don't want to do shout-outs too much. I did Paula Daniels, but there's George Wolfberg here, who also is another major player in the Palisades area there, the district. We have a lot of folks who are passionate for this. And so I'd like to throw it into the mix, because I agree that it's a pretty simple thing to do if we agree on certain places, and it's quicker than other things, and we can move along on those things.
We've actually looked at a number of locations throughout the city. One of the things, and the staff has been out there doing, it's been intermittent. As you've heard, we've been short-staffed and people have been moved around and folks are still in the learning curve as they come on board. But one of the things we've tried to do and what we recognize is cycling patterns are different throughout the city. It's real difficult sometimes to ride on the west side, while it's a lot easier to ride in some of the more local low-income neighborhoods. You get a lot more support and more respect from the motorists. But we have tried to spread this out geographically to deal with differing traffic conditions.
One of the things that I went back and looked at the San Francisco study recently because of a presentation they had done at the, Pro Bike in Seattle. And one of the things I noticed about their work was that when I first looked at it, it looked like they had covered a wide variety of streets. It said, wide lanes, narrow lanes, high volumes, low volumes. But when I went back to look, the volumes are really rather low. They were talking about 4,000 vehicles per lane per day. Fountain Avenue does 10,000, nearly 10,000 vehicles, and it's a lot different. With 4,000, 4,000 vehicles, over 4,000 vehicles. And then the other places where they did it, where they had 2 lanes of roadway, 1 lane in each direction, the lanes were rather wide. The lanes were 22 feet wide. 1 more foot and we would have room to paint a lane. And so there isn't that much conflict between the bicycles and vehicles sharing the same space. And that's one of the things that we need to cover in our report. The places where they had narrower lanes, they had much less volume. They had 2,000 to 4,000 vehicles per day per lane. And in that situation, there's no need for the 2 lanes. Basically, the automobiles that are using the right lane can move over, pass the cyclists, and move back. And in fact, in San Francisco, one of the things that really caught my eye when I first started looking at this was I was using Google to look at some of the streets that they had done this on, and I noticed that one of the streets they called out as a 4-lane roadway was 2 lanes with an edge line, a big space, and then parking. And I thought, well, this is only 1 lane in each direction. And then I looked at the study again, and in fact, it was 2 lanes in each direction at the time they did the study. But since then, they realized they didn't need the 2 lanes, and they painted the edge line in with parking, and then now they have a big space for cyclists. So, while the San Francisco study looked on the surface of it to cover a wide range of things, I think it did not, and that's one of the reasons why we want to take a look at this more carefully. One of the things that I'm concerned about, not Michelle,
one of the things I'm concerned about is if we put it in a situation where we have, a lane that's at capacity, and we put the bicycles in there, and there's not enough room for them to share the same space, and the lane only moves as fast as the cyclist, we will get a possible lawsuit based on environmental, that we've contributed to congestion and we haven't cleared it environmentally. I know people don't want to hear that, but that's what happened with the diamond lanes.
I know you all want to comment, but what I want to do is have, because we have a lot of cards, item 3, is that for Michelle and you all to meet with the coalition group of people. I want Mr. Parks.
Yes, I just would like to find out, did we get any update on the last time we discussed this around the area of USC?
We actually have been looking at USC for inclusion in the bicycle plan, if there are ways to develop the collector network within. I know we have identified, and I have to be quite honest, I haven't looked at the list recently, and I don't know which locations might be within your district, but again, we've tried to look at different geographic as well as geometric options so we see all the opportunities. Just for the record, I think there is a clear need and a clear use for Sharrows in the city. I just think we need to be very careful about how we do this. My personal concern about use in the Sharrows in the city is wear and our ability to maintain them. We will have to put them in thermoplastic. As thermoplastic wears and the friction reduces, they can be very slick for cyclists. So we need to be able to do this in a concerted manner that is safe for cyclists as well.
When you mentioned the master plan,
yes.
Now, what would be the difference in the sense of what would be you thinking about recommending for that area?
I, again, need to look at the map that the consultant's done, but the recommendations that you have made to me in the past, I forwarded on for the consultant and asked them to incorporate them within the draft of the map. Again, I haven't thoroughly looked at the new map.
Okay. Could you do us a favor and maybe next week give us the office a call and talk with Laura and let her know?
Laura?
Because one of the things, I don't know, if we lead the city, I don't know if there's any place that has more of a concentration of bikes than around SC. And we also know that there's probably a fairly decent volume of traffic accidents with bicycles. And
Well, I can tell you that the intersection of Hoover and Jefferson is our highest collision point within the city and has been.
Yeah.
Some of that is bicyclist error. The students are not patient enough to ride for the lights, but we are looking at connections in that area north of the campus.
Because I think that many of them believe it's a vehicle-free zone, and I think that's what the dilemma is. But I think if we are able to not study it to death, but figure out something that we can come up with a viable solution, because we're also, many of the kids, although they may have cars, are being encouraged in that immediate area to ride bikes to and from school, and we just like to be on the forefront of providing some grid type of activity, whether there's lanes or the shared lanes, because we certainly, with the number of people in that area, do not want them on sidewalks with all the students on sidewalks. So whatever you can do is give us, Delora, a call and see if we can get an update. And what we could do to facilitate some activity is creating a grid in that area.
We'll do that.
Okay.
Don't
So we
forget to give me a report back on the 15th. You don't have to be too formal about it, where you can go with CD11.
And so we want, in the next 30 to 60 days, for you to sit down with the coalition to talk about the Sharrows piece of that and going forward, as well as identifying potentially the consultant to go forward on implementing Sharrows. Okay. We're going to go next to item number 3. Okay. I know. No, sorry. I know. And I appreciate what I'm asking them is to meet with you so you can rebut on those items. So, okay. 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 It's all right. No, I appreciate your position, and I appreciate that we have 4 or 5 more other items and people to speak on that. We are not. If we were making a decision on this today, I would say go for it. We're making an ultimate decision, but I want them to meet with all of you. I'm not trying to discard, but if I let you, then I have to let everybody come back, and I apologize for that. So, public comment. Can you give your name to Michelle so that she can include you in that discussion? Okay.
I mean, when you say the bicycle community, are you referring to yourself, or is there some organization?
We're all members of some community websites.
Okay. Who would be a spokesperson?
Okay,
all right.
so what we want you to give your
Michelle.
name and information to Michelle, so when they get together on the Sharrows, because I think we won't resolve today the back and forth,
Yeah.
and it's better to sit together. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
No, it's great. That's great. Okay. And that's what we've asked. That's why we've asked them to do that. So it's important to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're asking them to report back in 30 to 60 days after they have met with all of the group and the status of that within that period of time. I understand. Okay. No. All right. Well.
Just talk to
Okay.
Michelle and give
so,
her your information.
we're going to go to item number 3. And so.
Item number
we
3
do need
is
to give respect to each other. So, no, I know you're not. And so item number 3.
Item number 3 is Rosendahl Garcetti Gruel motion relative to the Cyclist Bill of Rights.
Okay.
And I would
And what I
rather
asked-
have the report first, if they
Okay.
have anything to say before the cyclists.
Okay. We can have the department to come up.
Item number 3 on the Bicyclist Bill of Rights.
I'm sorry. Right. There's no report on this. It's just the motion. But if you could let us know as your review of that and what you're proposing to go forward.
A couple of things. First of all, almost all the rights, actually, I believe all the rights included in the 12 items listed in the Bicyclist Bill of Rights are protected in some way, shape, or form already. Some of them are federally protected, some are state protected, some of them are things we're already working on. For instance, number 3 is a full support of an educated law enforcement. We've been working with LAPD over the last several years to do a bicyclist education program with LAPD. There's a talk about end-of-trip amenities. The city has a municipal code that requires new and renovated buildings over 10,000 square feet to include bicycle lockers, showers, parking for the public. We also have 3,000 bicycle racks on the street. We're continuing to do more. There are a few other things in here that are more metro-related, like mass transit. There are things that are out of our control, like the judicial system. We don't really have any authority over the judicial system. So there are some items, 3, 7, 8, 9, and 10, that the city is working on, again, in some way, shape, or form, or we're going to expand upon within the new bicycle plan. The consultant has been provided with a copy of the Bicyclist Bill of Rights at the public workshops, and they've been working at incorporating these items into the policy document.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the city attorney on this item at all? Or ask that you be part of it to review it?
We certainly would be happy to work with Councilman Rosendahl's office, the CLA, and DOT in reviewing the legal implications of the city taking a formal position with this rather long laundry list of matters.
Okay. Because I talked about a couple items on there. Oh, go ahead.
And one thing I want to make clear, that the motion I put in is a clear motion that really came from the cyclist community. And I don't want to change that motion. And if we did change it, would be through an amending process in the public with everybody's involvement in it. So people have different interpretations of what we submitted, but the raw motion is on the record, and that's what I'm working for.
Great. If we could ask the following people and to come up to the table: Stephen Box, Alex Thompson, Erica, and Roadblock to come up as well. And we'd ask that if it's been said before, it does not need to be said again. So in there. We do have a lot of cards on this item. Okay, Roadblock, we're all asking the question, is that really your name?
Well, I don't know.
You don't have to say. You don't have to answer first.
Brown Act allows me to go with whatever. I've been watching. Yeah, I've been watching LA 36. I see Zuma Dog. He's got the Brown Act behind him.
I just had to ask. Okay, Stephen. Not to make light, but it's.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Box. I'm not an obstacle or a road hazard, and I'm not in your way.
Or not a what?
I'm not in your way. I'm simply a cyclist. I'm the co-founder of the Bike Riders Collective, and one of the work products this year was the Cyclist Bill of Rights. I'm proud to be here surrounded by all of these cyclists. Many couldn't make it today because of work or other obligations. Many couldn't make it because they didn't know about it. And there are many cyclists out there that don't even know not just about this meeting or our rides, but their rights. And so that's why we're here proposing the Cyclist Bill of Rights. I ask you to do two things. The first one is to endorse the Cyclist Bill of Rights in its entirety, as written and as ridden. And the second thing is that you direct that the Cyclist Bill of Rights be included in its entirety, as written and as ridden, in the Bicycle Master Plan. I thank you for your support in this day of bike love. And on behalf of cyclists who couldn't be here, we thank you for for endorsing the Cyclist Bill of Rights. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. May I?
Yes.
I think while I have a minute of time, I think what Roadblock said, Alex Thompson, Bike Riders Collective, what Roadblock said about LACBC and LABAC not being construed as the full representation of the community is very brave and completely accurate. The community is much broader than that. Patrick Miller alluded to the fact that the low-hanging fruit in Los Angeles is not bicycle infrastructure, and it's very easy to get caught up in bicycle infrastructure. That's sort of like the paycheck the city gives to the community. We sort of like, it's our measure of self-worth. How much money are they spending on infrastructure? But really, take a look at Amsterdam, post-war, right after the war, and now. They have tremendous infrastructure now, and they have ridership levels in the 30s and 40%. But post-war, the numbers were higher than that, and they had no bicycle infrastructure. The difference is cultural. There was respect and value for cyclists in the post-war era. So the Cyclist Bill of Rights is a cost-effective measure, political capital only, to endorse this.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm NC Box. I'm the co-founder of the Bike Riders Collective. I didn't write the Cyclist Bill of Rights, but some of the people from the Bike Riders Collective wrote it. And a lot of thought has been put into every item. Yes, a lot of them are supported by our Bill of Rights. Even Burger King has their Bill of Rights. JetBlue has their Bill of Rights. And just because some rights are already in the amendment, we're not excluding them. We're putting them in to remind people who are putting their foot onto American soil, they are protected by certain rights. And so should cyclists too. And a lot of cyclists don't know about their rights. They're riding because they have no choice. Some ride because they have fun. But they all should know that their rights as a cyclist are protected just as much as the First Amendment. So I'm asking you to endorse this as written, ridden, without any modifications. Thank you.
Thank you. And while Roadblock's about ready to speak, if I could ask you all to give your seat-ups to Damian Newton, Luis Vitas, and Joe Borfo. Who said pass? Luis. Okay, thank you, Luis. Go ahead.
I'll keep my comments brief. I just want to throw my voice behind the chorus of approval for the Bicyclist Bill of Rights. I think it's one more step in creating awareness for cyclists' rights to the roads, which I've also alluded to as far as speaking about sharrows and signage in Los Angeles. And if when this Bill of Rights is adopted, it would be great to have it posted, of course, at bike shops, LAPD stations, and the DWP. Thank you.
Thank you. Damian, followed by Joe, and then Danny Gamboa.
I think this is probably the last time I'm testifying on a bike something, so thank you for having the meeting today, and thanks everyone that came out. This is
great turnout.
This was great. I don't think anyone expects something like the Bicyclist Bill of Rights to have like a major overarching quick impact on laws or things like that, but it's an reiteration of rights that everybody has, and if people don't think we need that, they could just be paying attention to some of the things that happened at the meeting today. We had a police officer, after everyone was informing him that a system was broken in bike licensing and enforcing, 2 city council members, you were almost yelling at one point, that it wasn't working, not commit to just suspending the program for a couple of months, suspend the enforcement for a couple of months while they were studying it, which they admitted they were doing. And then in the last panel, we heard someone from LADOT say they didn't want to put sharrows on a road that was already at capacity because it might slow down traffic if they were aware that if more cyclists were on the road because it was marked that we have a right to be on now. So, I mean, I think it's great that this was written. It's great that it's being talked about, and I think it'll be great when it gets adopted.
Thank you. And before we go to Joe, David, I think, on Granada Hills. What was that? Oh.
I think I kicked the table when
I. Okay.
That's okay.
And VRL Bolog, or I can't. What? Oh, Varela's. Okay. So Patrick then. Go ahead, Joe. Joe.
Hi, Joe Borfo. I endorse the Cyclist Bill of Rights as written, and I'd like to remind you about the city of Portland, Oregon, how they have received kudos and I think platinum status for their bicycle infrastructure. And I just want to remind you that there are other cities, great like Los Angeles, that have implemented this and been successful. And I think we should, look at what they have done as well, since it's working for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Danny Gamboa. I'm a cyclist. Would like to ask you to endorse the Cyclist Bill of Rights as written. Please say yes to this grassroots movement and say yes to the cyclists.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Patrick Miller again, and I just want to say that actually the issue of the bicyclist Bill of Rights actually, the Cyclist Bill of Rights actually dovetails quite nicely with the past comments of the DOT in regards to Sharrows, because every single road in this city is eligible to be ridden by a bicycle. That means every single road in this city is eligible for a Sharrow. And if the DOT can't figure out how to pay for or how to put paint on the ground, I think that shows that they need a copy of the Cyclist Bill of Rights in their office every day, so that it's not a question of why we can't do this. Yes, we can't. It's a question of, okay, this needs to be done, and how are we going to do it? How are we going to provide communication to drivers and cyclists that they need to share the road together?
Thank you. And if we could ask Paula. Paula.
David Bola, Granada Hills. I'm going to reiterate the obvious to you. As the Transportation Committee, you do know that the biggest problem facing the city's residents of Los Angeles is traffic. Putting people out of cars and on bicycle eliminates that problem. For each person on a bicycle, they're not in a car or they're not crowding a bus. And there's other problems that are eliminated. Air pollution, noise pollution. You know that. That's the obvious thing. Now, the reason I say that is because the people here in this room, I know from being a cyclist for 10 years and encouraging people to get on bicycling, are the ones collectively that have, I think, from my observations, been responsible for seeing this big surge of cyclists. Now, with that being said, these are also the people that are out there every day that talk, live this life, and they encounter the problems that happen. That's why the Cyclist Bill of Rights was written. There's things that want to be eliminated from here, but the reason they're put on here is because they need to be put forth, and they need to be reminded to the city government that these rights be respected. And I ask you to endorse it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Paula? Yeah.
Before Paula Daniel speaks, just for the record, Paula is a member of the Public Works Commission and plays a major role in public works issues in the city. Paula Daniels also lives in Mandeville Canyon. And when we had the incident a while back, I asked Paula, as a leader in our great city, to be part of a bicycle task force that would go up and down Mandeville Canyon and look at it from three standpoints: the bicyclists and their safety, to the motorists and their issues, and residents walking around in the neighborhood. We know that Mandeville Canyon is a very attractive location for bicyclists, for the obvious steepness up and down and the actual pleasure and joy of going up a canyon to the top and coming down. So Paula went and did this ride with a bunch of folks, including the LAPD, people from my office, people from the bicycling community, various groups, and had quite a successful opportunity to study the road. So I'm delighted you're here, Paula. I know you're speaking on the Bill of Rights, but you can also comment on that study as well, and we will not put the clock on at this point.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. I am coming to, as you had suggested, just mention to folks what happened in the Mandeville Canyon area. My name is Paula Daniels. I'm a commissioner with the Board of Public Works for the City of LA, and I live, drive, and bicycle ride in Council District 11 and in the Mandeville Canyon area. So the councilman was referring to an incident on July 4 of 2008. It was a road rage incident. It was actually a criminal act. of someone who forced some bicyclists into a very unsafe situation. Fortunately, not a common occurrence, but it did highlight some tensions in the community relative to sharing the road. And I will say, as someone who drives there and commutes there, but also bicycles there and appreciates the fact that bicyclists belong on the road as much as vehicles and pedestrians, that I do think it is important that there be some understanding about fair conduct between automobiles and bicyclists. I'm not familiar with the Bill of Rights that's before you. I wasn't prepared today to come speak about that, so I haven't read it and can't comment on that itself, but I do think it important there be some kind of recognition that bicyclists belong on the road and that they are very, very vulnerable to misbehavior by automobiles, and therefore there must be an understanding about how to treat them properly as we share the road. And speaking of road, we did, as the Board of Public Works Commissioner, we oversee the Bureau of Street Services, which is responsible for the repair of streets in the city. And one of the things we were concerned about is what might make bicyclists vulnerable, even aside from oncoming traffic, to hazards in that roadway. So we did organize a bicycle ride with the LAPD, members of the community, and cycling community. And I would say Michelle Mowery from the Department of Transportation came along. For those of you who don't know, Michelle is an avid bicyclist and one of the best advocates they could have in the city for their efforts. And she's also a very good bicyclist. I enjoyed the bike ride quite a bit. I think it was boring for the people who were better than me in terms of pace, particularly because we stopped a lot to look at the problems. But we did identify a number of areas in the road that could use improvement, and I'm proud to say our Bureau of Street Services did go out and repair it right away. There were about 60 locations identified and repaired. So that included potholes. It also included overgrown brush, things that would be a hazard to bicyclists and to keep them from riding on the right side of the road, which they were attempting to do. So that's the situation now in Mandeville Canyon. I think we've taken care of that to the satisfaction of the people that live and recreate there in bicycles.
Thank you for your leadership and your public service in making that happen.
Okay, thank you. And I do also appreciate that you're looking at this issue. I think it's a very important one.
There's the last public speaking card on this subject, yes. I just want to ask the city attorney a question, because for me, and I'm not an attorney, I like the Bicycle Bill of Rights. I'd like to make it official and go forward with it, period. But before we send it to the council, do you need to vet it and look at liability issues and other issues? What does the city need to do at this point?
It would be our recommendation that we have a chance to, again, confer with your staff, in reviewing all this.
And in that reviewing process, could it then come from this committee to the full council for action?
Certainly.
So then I so move that we move forward with the Bicyclist Bill of Rights, with the caveat that you, as a city attorney, look at it from that end, and we bring it before our colleagues for a vote.
Does that happen? They need to review it prior to it coming to council.
Yeah, you will review it prior to coming to council.
We certainly would want to have the
Well, if I
opportunity. I think it might be helpful if we,
Yeah,
if
how much time do you need?
The motion directs the city attorney with the other departments to look at it. So you can go ahead and approve the motion, get that to council, and then we can start meeting and discussing
Terrific.
it if that's what you'd like
Then
to do.
my motion is to approve this motion and go forward with the process.
Great, and there were 5 of us.
In fact, there were 5 colleagues of mine that second the motion, so we're basically on our way to victory on this, and the sooner the better as far as I'm concerned.
Mr. Rosendahl, myself, and Eric Garcetti co-presented it and seconded by Ed and Bernard Parks.
That's right.
3 of these committee members. Okay, that'll be the action today. Thank you. We do have some other items. Some I know are here on item 7, which also, is the RAND study. But I just want to, before people leave, since the other 3 are not solely focused on the bicycling community and cycling community, I just want to thank you all for being here today, and that your voices, Mr. Block, will be heard and are going to be part of the process. And it is, an opportunity for us to engage a number of people, and the blogs that have been out there encouraging people to participate today. I really appreciate to getting that word out. So thank you all for being here today.
We thank you for that. Thank you very much.
So, next item, Madam Clerk.
Item number 7 is a Grohl-Rosendahl motion relative to reviewing the RAND Corporation's report on short-term strategies to reduce traffic congestion in Los Angeles.
We'll hear the report, and then we do have 4 comment cards.
Good afternoon. Sean Hyrie with the Department of Transportation. I did review the executive summary that was 84 pages, and I'm glad to report that even though we are requesting to come back in 45 to 60 days to present a report from the department side as far as what we think of the RAND report and what we're doing to stay compliant, I wanted to mention that having looked at it, we are compliant with almost all of the recommendations coming out of that report. We are investing heavily in our signal system through our ATSAC program. We are investing in our incident management, again, through our ATSAC program. We have the very comprehensive bus rapid transit system. We are, as you know, we received a lot of money from the government to study congestion pricing through installation of hot lanes and some parking strategies to generate income and also encourage other modes of transportation. We are, in our parking group, Mr. Sadari has already embarked on a lot of policy changes, investing in new parking meter technology to take advantage of dynamic pricing to be able to basically discourage congestion in CBD areas or places of business. In our planning bureau, we are currently revising our traffic study guidelines to be more compliant with AB 32, which is climate change and sustainability, SB 375, which is smart growth and sustainable communities, and also AB 1358, which is the Complete Streets Act, which promotes multimodalism and basically, although we all know every street is not a good candidate for bike lanes or pedestrian facilities, but we know that in a neighborhood we can find streets that are meant for moving vehicles and other streets that can complement the system by adding bike lanes and enhancing pedestrian or transit use facilities. Also, we are taking a fresh look at the way we look at TDM measures when we review traffic studies. We are moving in that direction because we all know in the future if you want to receive funds from the feds or the state, you have to be compliant with all the climate change and sustainability rules. So measures like parking cash-out programs or unbundling of parking for new developments, commercial developments, establishing parking districts that would encourage usage of underutilized parking spaces during off-peak hours for other purposes. Again, I looked at the whole report and there wasn't a heck of a lot that we're not doing or not looking at currently, but we will come back to you in 45 to 60 days and present a complete report and tell you where we are as it relates to the report.
Okay, thank you. And then we do have, cards on it. Yes, thank you. If you wouldn't mind, Hillary Norton, Kent Strumpel, Howard Hackett, and Stephen Box.
Good afternoon, committee members. I know it's been a long afternoon, and I'm the executive director of FAST, Fixing Angelenos Stuck in Traffic, and we were one of the sponsors, along with Metro and the Music Center, of the RAND report. We appreciate LADOT looking at this, and I will also add that one of the recommendations was to expand the region-wide bicycle network, that there is a commitment to bicycles as well. It's so important that even though these are things that LADOT is doing, that we recognize that traffic right now is costing the city of Los Angeles $9 billion a year in economic costs due to not being able to go to your work on time, due to fuel costs and others. We're here to help implement these so that we can put $9 billion a year back into our economy. In addition, we saw today in the LA Times that 113 left turn signals might be cut out of the budget. These are items that are very useful for our economy and may not be the best things to cut out. And we just want to have us look at ways in which we can be penny
wise and not pound foolish.
There you go. Thank you for that. And I agree with you on those left-hand turn signals. First thing I did was have my people look at all the ones I have under consideration right now. They better not stop them from going in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Ken Strumpel?
Yes, Ken Strumpel, City of LA, BAC, and LA County Bike Coalition. This is a very interesting study. I think there's a lot of promising stuff in it, measures that were outlined by the RAND. I do want to encourage that as this is being analyzed, that we look at the impact that these measures can have on cycling, and to include their needs at the earliest design stage for anything that we go forward on. One-way streets, anything that increases speed could particularly impact cyclists. So I hope that we can also use this analysis to look for ways to integrate cycling more into any provisions that might be implemented that come out of this.
Thank you. And staff on this issue, please, let's go with that flow from the bicycle discussions to the RAND study and incorporate bicycling issues into that as well. Howard Hackett?
Yes, I read the RAND study. I'm sure all of you have. It's only 638 pages. Everybody's read it in the room? Anyway, Bill, your office has it. I gave it to Kent. I gave it to Jim and
they actually
and
came and
Whitney.
met with me, the RAND people. We had a good discussion with it.
So anyway, there's 157 references to bicycles in that plan, and it's a plan of 13 recommendations for traffic and bicycle improvements, and you can do it cheaply without spending a lot of money. Just go do it. And I'm going to say I just made a New Year's resolution. I'm not coming to any more of these meetings. They're very boring. First of all, I thought that I could go to the bureaucracy and get things done, the issues that concern me, or I'd come to you guys and you'd solve them for me, but it doesn't work. So I'm going to go ride my bicycle instead. So thank you very much for all your time.
Well, thank you for coming. We look forward to you changing your mind in a New Year's resolution and coming back. Stephen Box?
Stephen Box,
Make these
thanks.
resolutions, and sometimes we don't keep them.
Thanks for the opportunity. I've read the RAND report, and we hosted Allison Yo in Woodland Hills for a forum where we took on this particular topic, along with many others as far as short-term solutions, some of them that cost money and some of them that make money. But they all require some good, hard negotiating with ourselves on what we're willing to do to change the world. I would like to point out, though, that there's an unnecessary and unnatural dichotomy between some of the departments with regards to some of these solutions. You heard today cyclists proposed as a traffic congestion problem, not a traffic solution. So we've got to get these philosophies in line, and that's the struggle that we have lying ahead of us so that we can really get busy relieving congestion and changing the world. So I thank you for pushing, but I think there's some heavy work to be done just getting us in sync. Thanks for the opportunity.
I appreciate your comments, and I might say about the RAND study, RAND is, of course, a facility located in the city of Santa Monica, which is in the heart of my district, is the separate city of Santa Monica, and the RAND Corporation took this upon themselves as a public service, and we hope to move this before the council, actually, and see if we could find time for the RAND people to come themselves and do a dog and pony show for my colleagues and for the public who could watch it on Channel 35, get an appreciation of what they invested. Yesterday, I'm a member of the COG, which is Beverly Hills, West Hollywood, Santa Monica, Culver City, and LA County. We all sit in the room periodically and talk about mutual issues, including traffic and homelessness and development and housing and all. And the RAND study did come up again, and many members in the room felt there was a value to them in a short-term way. So appreciate your comments, and could we have this go before the council, structure a time where we could possibly have the RAND people come and do a PowerPoint?
You want to amend the motion to ask the RAND people to do a
To come
presentation?
forward, and
Okay.
yeah, it would be more valuable that way.
Okay.
Mr. Hart, could you second that?
Yes.
Okay. So moved. If we could move forward with that, it will broaden the dialogue on that study, and hopefully it will broaden the action taken on it. That's item number 7. Now we have item number 8. Is that right?
Item number 8 is the DOT report relative to an update on the Dodger Stadium shuttle service for the 2008 baseball season.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Jim Lefton with the Department of Transportation. We just wanted to give you a brief update on the status of the Dodger Shuttle service that was operated by the department for the latter half of the 2008 season, as well as some information leading into the 2009 season. If you recall, back in June of 2008, the council directed the department to move forward with plans to implement a Dodger Shuttle service between Union Station and Dodger Stadium. For basically the last half of the season, about 32 home games. We estimated the cost to be about $70,000 for that 2-month period to be borne by the city of Los Angeles. Overall, we feel the service was a success. The intent of the program was to demonstrate whether there was a demand for the service. We averaged about 700 riders per game for the service. That compares to about 400 riders that rode the service back in 2004 when the Dodgers ran the shuttle. I feel there's a few reasons why the service was so successful. Gas prices over the summer obviously were very high, and that could have contributed to an increased use of the shuttle. Dodger parking costs have gone up since 2004, and the service was free, so that was obviously an attraction as well. Leading to the 2009 season, we've had some initial discussions in meetings with the Dodgers, affected council offices, MTA, the transit contractor, as well as our bus advertising consultant. It looks like the cost to run the shuttle for a full 2009 season would be about $350,000. Again, I mentioned the service was free last time, so we would look if the city were to operate it, we would look to charge a fare. Perhaps $1 to $3 would be reasonable. That would generate somewhere in the area of about $50,000 to $135,000 in revenues, which still leaves a significant shortfall to be made up. The department believes that given the city's shortfall in funds that it's incumbent upon the Dodgers to either fund the net cost of the service or identify sponsors to help pay for the cost of the service. The Dodgers, when this was approved by this committee back in June, committed that they would look to find sponsors to help fund the service in 2009. And I want to point out that we have 2 examples of public-private partnership services that are being implemented today. The extension of the Red Line, hours from 12 midnight to 3 a.m. on Friday and Saturday nights, as well as extension of the Dash Downtown hours from 6:30 p.m. to 3 a.m. are both starting tonight and will run through the holiday season, funded 100% by private sponsorships. So we feel that that's the appropriate model for this service as well, and we'll continue our discussions with the Dodgers and the other affected stakeholders and report back on the status of those discussions.
I appreciate everything you just said. How much did it cost the city to run the service this past
We estimated a cost of $70,000 for the 32 home games for the 2008 season. That was based on the assumption that we would need 5 vehicles. Because the ridership demand was significantly higher than we anticipated, we need to run more vehicles, and then the Dodgers made the playoffs, which was all good news, so we ran for those 5 playoff games as well. So the total cost to the city for all those games was about $150,000. So we went significantly over our budget for the 2008 season.
Wow, so we went from the $70,000 we discussed, where I did a little scream in the council that the Dodgers could pay for it themselves, you know. It went from $70,000 to $150,000.
That's correct.
Okay. And Manny came along, and Manny added a whole lot of new energy to the Dodgers. So when does the season start next year?
I don't have the exact date. It's, I believe, early April is when the season
Okay,
typically
so
starts.
look, it's just a few months away. And so I want to make a very clear comment. I want to report back to the committee by the end of January, no later than whatever the meeting is in January, with the instruction from the committee that the Dodgers have to commit to paying for this thing. And if they're not willing to, we'll have a lot of serious discussion about it. But we're not going to be caught come spring with another attitude that suggests the city bails it out. We just had a press conference. Some of us left and went to that with the mayor. These are tough times for the city family as well as for every family out there as our economy tanks throughout the planet. And in that context, we want the Dodgers to literally step to the plate and hit a home run, which would be to absorb these costs. So get that message to them, and I look for a report back to this committee with the Dodgers representatives here saying how they're going to make it happen in this public-private partnership. Okay.
Jim, let me ask, do we have any potential of looking at advertising dollars on this specific
Yes.
leg?
We did have discussions, as I mentioned briefly in my comments. We have a contract with a company called Titan Worldwide that does all of our advertising on our transit vehicles. These vehicles that we're talking about here are not owned by the city. They're charter buses that are run through our charter bus program. But we did talk with Titan about exploring how much revenue could be generated through placing advertising on these vehicles. The problem that they found in talking to potential advertisers, in addition to the fact that the economy is in such bad shape and advertising budgets are much tighter than they were in the past, is that other than the game days when these shuttles are running, there's no guarantee where these buses are going to be operating, whereas for our fixed route services, we can pretty much guarantee 5, 6, 7 days a week what these buses will be doing. These charter buses, when they're not running the Dodger Shuttle, are off either in the yard or doing other types of service. So we cannot provide a guarantee on what those buses will be doing. Our consultant, our Titan basically came up with an estimate of about $80,000 a year, which we would share with Titan, so we'd get about $40,000 a year in advertising, which is a relatively small amount. That's why we, as I stated in my comments, we believe that it's incumbent upon the Dodgers to look to their sponsors to help sponsor the service. The Dodgers can do other things beyond just putting ads on the sides of the buses. They can make the sponsors' names available on their broadcasts in the stadium, do other things to encourage sponsors to participate. And for that reason, we think that that's why we suggested that the Dodgers take a lead role in working with their sponsors to help fund the cost of the service.
And also, it's not to our benefit to be looking at a fixed route as opposed to the buses that we're currently using, the charter, are using our buses.
Well, part of the problem is that this service would operate on a number of days where we have regular scheduled service. We don't have a fleet of extra vehicles that we can operate. And then there's also an issue, which was mentioned, that MTA shares the same concern, is that there's charter bus regulations with FTA that prohibit the use of vehicles that have been vehicles that have been funded with federal funds. They cannot compete against charter bus operations.
Yeah. Now, would it be more expensive if the city used their buses as opposed to charter?
Particularly if we had to go out and lease buses, it would be more expensive, yes.
Thank you.
If I could ask you to go to the Dodgers officially, and we had agreed to $70,000. It went to $150,000. Part of it was the new Manny and playoffs and all that. Are they willing to absorb any of that additional $80,000 that we have been at least asking the question, or did you?
We have talked to the Dodgers on a number of occasions. We went to the Dodgers when they made the playoffs and asked them if they were willing to fund the cost of running the service during the playoffs. They indicated no. We've talked to the Dodgers about funding the service for the 2009 season and see if their position has changed from last year, and basically it has not. Their position remains that they feel the shuttle should be funded by the public sector, not the private sector, and that they're not willing to fund the cost of the service.
Okay, then it's more important than ever that you have that meeting and have them come back, and we want to hear them say it on the record here. And we'll see with the suggestions you've just given in response to Mr. Park's question, what their answers might be to that. We do have a comment card on this from Damien. Is that right, Newton?
Thanks again for the opportunity to testify. I'm Damian Newton. I agree with, a lot of what you've been saying about the Dodgers, being not stepping up to the plate really on this. And if you read the PR materials they put out when the shuttle came out, it sounded like the Dodgers are bringing you this new shuttle service, and the city is too. City's helping, and it was a little annoying. Anyway, given that I don't think that they're going to step up to the plate with financing, and given that this really did help with the traffic, I have an alternate suggestion, which is try to get the Dodgers, instead of just having a parking plan, to have a real transportation plan that the buses are part of. When I say, what can you do for a real transportation plan when you just have roads going into, Chavez, is you can do things like discounted tickets if you take the bus, or if you bike to the stadium, like very few of us do. You buy your parking pass when you buy your ticket, so that you can actually do that. If you're carpooling, then if you're buying 5 tickets and 1 parking pass, you can buy your ticket for a little less. Or you actually charge per person in a car, as opposed to charging for charging for, and when I say per person in a car, I mean if there's one person in the car, they pay more for parking than a car that has 5 people in it. And this stuff is done in some of the other sports venues around the countries. When they're building all these new stadiums that you hear about, and the Dodgers, since we're not building a new stadium, haven't gotten into this, but when you hear the new stadiums in New York or Pittsburgh or whatever, they have to put in real transportation plans that are beyond the stuff we're seeing
do me
here.
a favor, get with our city staff on this, on the side on that. He's being very creative, our city staff, and you're being creative. But I am very upset to hear that the Dodgers didn't pick up any part of the additional $80,000. And I'd love to know what their books look like and what kind of a season they had. And tell them I am interested in checking on their books to see what kind of profits they made. And why do taxpayers in a city that is suffering through a deficit pick up a tab, especially if they're in the black? It's unacceptable behavior on their part. And I'm going to demand to see their books if they're not going to go forward with taking leadership on this going forward. Okay? All right, that's the end of that item. Thank you. And I'd like a report suggesting just what I said I want out of the Dodgers. Just public comment is left, correct?
No, we have one more item.
There's one more.
Item number 9, which is the CAO report relative to proposed contracts for charter bus services.
Angela Berman, CAO. The CAO report recommends approval of the Department of Transportation's request to enter into contract for charter bus services. The proposed 8 contracts represent the 8 firms that bid on the RFP. There is $3.6 million in Proposition A funding in 0809 for charter bus services, and that will be sufficient to cover costs this year. Future year funding will be provided in future year budgets.
Okay, a staff suggestion at this point? I see some questions that Ms. Wendy left here, but doesn't seem like, well, Mr. Parks.
Yeah. Let me just ask, Jim, how long is the contract?
This contract's for 5 years.
5. Do we have some kind of performance criteria if they're not performing that would make it short of 5 years, or is there a review within the 5-year period of assessment?
We do collect information, various service-related criteria, information on each of the contractors, and what we typically do is if we start having undue amount of concern or complaints about a particular contractor, that we can suspend them or basically put more emphasis on some of the other contractors to keep them in line. So that's been a long-standing practice, where contractors have been a problem, we suspend it or diminish the amount of service that we provide to them.
Okay. Now, is this, what, 7 or 8 of them? Is that pretty much the number of people that have or have the ability to perform these
yes,
service?
All 8 respondents are being recommended for a contract. That includes the 7 existing incumbent contractors plus 1 new contractor.
So we have probably, with 8 contractors, the pool of people
Yes.
that are eligible.
So we have the ability to choose who's doing the best job and giving the service.
It's a matter of who you send the work to.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
There were 2 questions suggested here in my briefing book. Does each council office have a budget to operate this program in their district?
Yes.
And if the offices have a savings, where does the money go?
If the council office does not use all the funding by the end of the year, I believe that rolls back into the Prop A account, and then the new year's budget kicks in.
What is about 80,000 a year?
I think it's up to about 90,000 a year.
Right.
Okay. So we recommend approving this?
Yes.
So done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the current contract expires like January.
End of January, correct.
So this has to be in play so that we can continue getting buses February to June.
That's correct.
Forthwith.
We like that. We like that money, too. Okay, we have one general comment, Transportation Committee from George Wolfberg, who sat through the whole meeting. Welcome, George.
Thank you. First, I'd like to second what Paula Daniels said about Michelle Mowry. The bicycle community is extremely well served, and by the wonderful job she does, and she's great. There's 3 items I wanted to talk about. The first is the Marvin Browdy bike path.
Yes.
Which goes from Temescal Canyon Road down, ultimately, I guess, to Redondo Beach and to Culver City, near where the expo line is going to end, and provides an opportunity for people to recreate and also to commute. We found there's a high percentage of people that commute, and I can tell you that the completion of that bike path is a very high priority of the Pacific Palisades Community Council. That would complete it to the Getty Villa. And it's an expensive project, and we're working with the mayor to try to get some federal money. We would like to see some money come from Measure R, the local return money, to help fund this project. Secondly...
Stay on that, George, would
yes.
you? Okay, appreciate that. Go ahead.
Secondly, bike helmets, bicycle helmets, there's a law. There's a generation of people that have gone through and worn the helmets. Now the new generation, they're not wearing them. We're talking about kids. You can go drive around anywhere and you'll see kids are not wearing bike helmets. So somebody needs to do something about that, because it's for their own safety. They're not wearing them. So
Can we look into that, please, and have a report back on that issue? It's a safety issue. The use of bike, of using hats.
And then the final, I just wanted to mention that your worthy advocates from the BAC neglected to include Entrada Drive as an area that could use Sharrows. It's a very heavily bike traveled route.
Could we look into that? What, say it to...
Entrada Drive.
Entrada Drive.
And there's a dangerous curve there. We have an accident there about every 3 months, and you well know about that.
Yes, I do.
So this might slow the traffic down a little bit, too.
Thank you. Appreciate all three of your suggestions, George. They all make a lot of sense. We'll get right on the safety issue of the helmet and on the Entrada Drive as another part there, plus the Marvin Browdy bike path. Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Bless you. Have a great weekend.